I had an amazing experience dealing with.
It was just a giant question mark.
At the time, there was chatter about me and the Nobel Prize. I never put much faith in that.
Say when I did the those commercials, like I said, all kinds of fucked up shit.
I was sentenced to 26 years in federal prison for bank fraud, wire fraud, government document fraud, wire fraud against the United States government, money laundering, Social Security fraud. I'd committed fraud.
Like, I mean, I said all kinds of, like, really, really, like, you know, straight psychopath. And yet, here's what the crew said. Like, they did this.
It's so everybody knows because we just came on. We're talking about the LifeLock commercial where you're there with Newt. And I remember the first time I asked you, I said, what did he say to you when you walked in as the America's most wanted guy, and then there you are? You were like, he looked at me like, hi.
So you know what's funny? He didn't. So when I met him, first of all, here's what's funny too about him. He's tall.
Really?
I always felt like he would be 5'7",
like
5'8".
our height, right?
Yeah. No, he's like 6 foot tall.
Really?
It's so when you walk in, I'm like, and everybody's taller than me, but I just, in my mind, because he's hefty, I just assumed he was hefty and short. No, he's hefty and like 6 foot tall. And he's older. He's an older guy. He was probably in his 70s. And he was so sharp. Like, I mean, on it. Like it wasn't like you're talking to an older person. He's like, I know, okay. And when they put him in front of the camera just to talk about home title lock, he went on for 3 or 4 minutes about, you know, the home being your most important purchase and how you need to protect yourself, and just went on and on and on. And I sat there, and I remember I leaned into they had like a producer, an executive producer that was, you know, that kind of they put with you to kind of walk you around, and, you know, she's more than an assistant. Let me put it this way. So, and I went to him, and I went to her, and I went, is he reading something? She goes, no. She said, he's just. I go, did you give him talking points? She said, no. She goes, he's just amazing. Like, he just
can
that
turn it
good.
on like that.
He read what the company was about. He researched it. He'd done some things, and his endorsement was all basically him just giving an honest endorsement. She's like, we didn't give him notes on anything. She goes, he's just that sharp and professional, and already did a little bit of research. Really, probably, you know, maybe he did a deep dive. I don't know what he did. I'm assuming at best, like, my research was reading the website and speaking with them about what they do. So, but he was amazing. He was amazing. But here's the thing. When they introduced me to him and I walked in the room, there's guys there that you feel like I felt like, and they weren't introduced, but I felt like, and I don't think they're Secret Service, because what happens is, I think after you retire, I think you get like state police that follow you around to protect you. And so I felt like maybe they were his protection, I'm pretty sure. So there was a couple guys in the room, but they introduced me. I shake his hand, and they say, Mr. Cox is you know, he's here to talk about this and this. He recently got, and I'd been out of prison 4, 5 months, 6 months. Recently got out of prison. He did like 13 years for title theft. They call it, you know, title theft.
Is this the first time they're telling him this?
Yeah, and he as he's shaking my hand, and he's looking at them like, right. When he hears federal prison, title theft, 13 years, the look on his face was, how did he get in the room with me? Like, he kind of glances around. I'm telling you, he made eye contact with these two guys, and I'm pretty sure that look was,
watch him.
Aren't you supposed to stop me from being like, did you know that this guy was going to be in the room with me? Because let's face it, you don't just, like, I couldn't walk to the White House. No. They're going to do a background test. They're going to be like, I'm not sure we should have this guy in the, you know, or at least we're going to have someone standing next to him. Anyway.
But if you remember, when I first saw that, I could see them having you do the commercial, right? You're kind of like the guy from the Tom Hanks movie. But then when I saw him, I was like, fuck.
What's funny about that? I used to wake up on Saturday mornings, Saturday and Sunday mornings, and it's quiet. In prison, it's just, people always think people think prison, they think oh, it's quiet and you're solitary. It's a lot of solitude and you're in your cell alone and you're separated. No, you're never alone. You never have privacy. And these fucking guys are screaming. Can I cuss?
Yeah, fuck it.
These guys are screaming all the time. It's always loud, except in the morning. So I would make it a point of waiting for count. So the guards walk around, they count. I immediately get up, go get myself some coffee. Most people are sleeping and it's quiet. I go into a TV room, turn on the TV. There's nothing on, but the home title lock commercials were always on.
Yep.
And I would sit there and I'd watch them. And it's like an infomercial, right? It's like 30 minutes. So you're watching it and it's the infomercial is funny because it's almost like is this a commercial? Oh no, it's definitely a commercial. Oh wait, now they're doing who are they interviewing? Who's this guy? This is interesting. So they do have a good blend where you think, this isn't a commercial. Oh no, it is a commercial. Oh no, wait a minute. I was like, this is kind of cool. And I'm super interested, obviously. I'm in prison for this. And I'm watching, I'm like, oh yeah. So they're talking to a lawyer. Okay, they're interviewing the lawyer. He's talking about title theft. And then, they got a retired FBI agent. Okay, cool. Oh, he was cybercrime and this and that. And you're watching, oh, there's another FBI agent. He's talking about it. Oh, they've got a couple of victims. Oh, okay. And then they show the criminal, and it's a guy behind a computer in a hoodie that you can't see his face, just kind of hunched over doing the whole, typing away. And it's this ominous voice, the criminals are hard at work, defrauding homeowners, blah, blah. And I remember watching it and I thought, you've got 6 people on here. Why wouldn't you have gotten a criminal? And I thought, they can't get a criminal. They don't know anybody that's done this. Not that you can't find them, because you can, although it's difficult, because the reason it's difficult is this. There's no such thing as title fraud. So, they say title fraud.
And what is title fraud?
So let's say you have a house. Matter of fact, you do have a house.
Yeah.
So let's say I get your address. I go down to public records. And this is the easiest version of it. There are many, many versions that will totally screw up a homeowner. I can go right now to your house. And nobody thinks this is even possible because it doesn't happen a lot, but it's happening all the time now. So I go to your house and I can just drive through your neighborhood, bro. I'll just drive through your neighborhood and be like, oh, that looks like a nice house. Go to public records. In my day, you had to go down to public records. Now I can go to a Starbucks, pull out my laptop, pull up the county public records and look up your address, pull up a copy of your deed, pull up a copy of your I can check and see if you have a mortgage. A lot of people don't do this. They don't have the ability to do this. But typically, a lot of times, if you have a mortgage, guys will move on. In my case, I'll look at your mortgage and I'll go, oh, he's got a mortgage. I'll then create a satisfaction of mortgage from your mortgage company, and I will satisfy your mortgage. So I create a one-page document that says your mortgage is paid off, and I record it with public records. Your mortgage now disappears off public records. Obviously, you still own it. Like Bank of America knows you still owe them, and you don't have any idea this is happening, so you're still paying. But Bank of America doesn't realize that their mortgage lien just disappeared. So then let's say I take your deed, and I can transfer your deed into my name. Or someone that, let's say
because you have that paper, so then you can sign it, whatever you, right?
I can, but you have that paper. People think, oh, your deed, you have to take your deed and keep it in your safe. No, you don't.
No.
I can type up a warranty deed, and I can transfer the warranty deed out of your name into Jennifer's or Paul's or John's or any fake ID I want, or any person I've stolen their ID, or a synthetic identity. Or my own. I can transfer it, and then I can put your house on the market, and I can sell your house.
And I don't even know it.
No, one day you go to get your mail, and you're like, foreclosure notice, or, what's this? Or, you see what I'm saying? Like, I can borrow against your house. Or maybe one day you come home or you're driving by your rental property, and you're like, what are those people doing? What's that U-Haul van? And you stop and you go, excuse me, what are you doing? Oh, we just bought this house. We're moving in. This is my rental property. What are you talking? I'm calling the police. The police show up. They're no help. They don't even know. They're like, what happened?
And I
Sounds
always
civil.
bring you up. And I'm sure I fuck it up. And I always say, this guy, Matt, is unbelievably smart. He probably would have got away with it forever, but girls always kill you. And I probably say it wrong. So to make sure I'm saying it right, you went and got the social security numbers, blah, blah, blah. And then you would buy the house, and then 3 other people would buy it, but you would be out before they realized that 3 people bought the same house.
No,
What's the correct way to say that
So
what you did
what I did,
in a samurai?
I did 10 different versions of it. So it's hard because sometimes when I'll tell somebody I did this, you'll have somebody in the comment section and be like, no, on another program, he said he did this. Look, I've done lots of title theft, right? But the charge, by the way, what I was getting back to is the charge is not title theft because there's no legal title theft. It's bank fraud.
Bank fraud.
Sometimes they'll reduce it to wire fraud or financial institution fraud or whatever. It's fraud. So to find someone like me, it's difficult because my charge is not title fraud. It's bank fraud. The point is what I would do is like I said, many different versions. I would go and let's say I'd go rent your house. So I rent your house. Maybe I take over your identity. And you think, well, I've got 2 mortgages on the house. So there's no equity in the house. And what I do is I go downtown. I create a satisfaction of mortgage for your 2 mortgages, your first and second mortgage. I satisfy it. Now I'm living in your house under your name. And then I turn around and I borrow 4 mortgages on your house at the same time.
Yeah.
So let's say, and usually in this scenario, which I've done, it's actually happened I did it in South Carolina, like 8 times. I did it in, I've done this in Florida. I've done this multiple places.
This episode is brought to you by Fiji. More than just water.
This is not just rock. It's ancient volcanic rock that filters tropical rain, giving it double the electrolytes and its signature soft, smooth taste. It's not just water. It's Fiji water.
This podcast is brought to you by Monster Energy. Tear into a can of the meanest energy drink on the planet, Monster Energy. It's the ideal combo of the right ingredients in the right proportion to deliver a big bad buzz that only Monster can. Monster packs a powerful punch, has a smooth, easy drinking flavor. Athletes, musicians, co-eds, road warriors, metalheads, geeks, hipsters, and bikers dig it. You will too. Monster Energy is more than just the green OG. Monster has Monster Ultra, Juice Monster, Monster Hydro, Rehab Monster, Dragon Tea, Monster Max, Muscle Monster, and many more. Buy on Amazon, buy on Walmart, or go to monsterenergy.com and believe me, you'll find a place. Unleash the beast. Monster Energy.
But I did it in Georgia, in Alpharetta, Georgia, which is basically Atlanta. It's just outside Atlanta. So I rented a guy's house, satisfied the loan. Now I'm living in the house. I called 4. That's not true. I called 3 hard money lenders, and they all came out. One comes out on Tuesday at 10. The other guy comes out at 2. The other guy comes out at 5. They walk around the house. They go, man, this is great. This house is worth a couple $100,000. That same house is worth $400,000 now. But so they go, yeah, it's worth about a couple hundred. And they go, I'm going to lend you $150,000. And I go, all right. And so then we schedule 3 closings at 3 different title companies because none of these guys know about each other. I close 10 o'clock with one guy, 2 o'clock the next guy, 5 o'clock the next guy. And they each lend me $150. That ends up being $450,000 less closing costs, whatever. So let's say it's around $300. Let's say it's around whatever $400,000. I don't know the exact numbers on that one. I do remember the guy's name was Michael Shanahan because he showed up. He showed up at my sentencing. So then I deposit those checks into bank accounts that I've opened in the name Shanahan, or I could have opened those accounts in the name of anybody. Whoever I had IDs in. And then I deposit the money. I pull the money out in cash. Once I got the $400,000, I skip town. And Michael Shanahan one day stops by because I haven't paid rent. Stops by like, oh, it's the 7th. Let me go knock on the door. I don't know what's up with this guy. And he goes and he's like, let me go ahead and check the mailbox. Boy, there's a lot of mail. And he pulls it out and he sees dozens of letters addressed to Michael Shanahan and several notices saying you haven't made your first mortgage payment. And he's, mortgage payment? I don't have a mortgage payment on this. All my stuff goes to my P.O. box or whatever. And he makes a few phone calls and finds out that he just borrowed $450,000 on this property, and these people are going to foreclose.
Good day.
And he's like, holy shit. Like, this is a bad time. He ends up having to get a lawyer, and that lawyer then contacts those guys, or those hard money guys. Then they have to contact the title company. So it cost him about $6,000 in legal fees to correct the problem. He got lucky. He had $6,000. He got lucky. They were all hard money guys he could contact. Some of the people that these types of things happen to would make the phone calls, and you're talking about some big corporation, and they don't believe you. Like, no, we lent money to you. No, you didn't lend money to me. Or even worse, they sold their house to me in the name of somebody that I stole their identity, and then I borrowed $800,000 and pulled the money out, and now they're fighting with four different lenders saying, I sold the house to this guy, I have a mortgage, and he borrowed money from you. Why did you guys lend him that money? And they're like, because you don't have a mortgage on the house. He satisfied the mortgage. And they're like, well, we're going to take the house. No, you're not going to take my house. That's my house. Like, I have a mortgage on it. No, you don't. Look in public records. You don't.
Satisfied.
Right, satisfied. Like you. So now they had to go. This is another couple. They had to go out and get a lawyer. That was about $10,000 to get that lawyer who fought with these companies. They got their house back and they resold it. But yeah, that's what happens. So that's title theft. So that is what I did. You know, those are the individuals that happen. Like, I have about 4. I've done that where it's been maybe 10 or 12 people actually that were involved. I have 3 or 4 victims that I still owe money to. Not because I stole money from them, but because they went out and got a lawyer. So they had to pay a lawyer $6,000 or $11,000 or
Right.
$10,000 or $5,000. So the total of those 4 people is like $30,000, and that's part of my $6 million restitution that I pay every month.
Fuck is another 30 after
Yeah,
six,
they
right?
they
It's
probably
like
get a check for, you know,
$3.
$12,
Yeah.
which is funny because I always thought, like, as much as the government vilified me and used these victims, they never once said they should be paid off first. Like, if you're going to list, because over 50 of my victims are banks, and then there's 4 individuals. Why would you have me make a payment every month that goes into a pool? Why wouldn't you have just paid them off first and then had the money go to the banks?
Where the money doesn't go back to the victim?
It does, but they probably just get a dollar. Every time I make a payment, they probably get $3, $4 a month.
And where's the rest of it?
Then it goes to these banks.
What the fuck? They give it to the huge banks?
Well, and honestly, here's the big problem:
Wow,
is that 80% of those banks don't even exist anymore because during the financial crisis they went under. So I'm making payments that the government's just, and keep in mind I paid in $300,000.
Wow.
So I don't know the $6 million now; it's down to like 5.7.
I didn't know that. I thought in that case it would go right to the victim.
You would think,
And then the bank later, because the bank's,
yeah, the bank is a faceless entity
Faceless.
who get that
doesn't even have any money anyway.
Well, that trust me does not. Nobody at that bank is laying in bed at night thinking this motherfucker got us.
No.
But that doctor, you know, or that accountant, like, not that I think that it didn't crush them or financially destroy them or anything, but nobody wants to lose $10,000, you know? So, and trust me, that guy laid in bed at night, like anguishing for months until the lawyer fixed the credit or the title issue that I caused for him. He laid in bed.
And
So-
the bank goes like this.
Right, the bank doesn't give. The bank's like, it's another number. Nobody at the bank said, "Oh my God, what happened?" Nobody cared. But it would. I've always thought, and this is the problem. I can't contact those people. You know, while you're on federal probation, you can't contact anybody. Like, if I reached out to them and said, "Hey, look, I was wondering, I'd like to put in a motion that says that you'll be receiving funds from me directly. Like, maybe we can restructure this, go back." I can't imagine the U.S. attorney would have a problem with that. But my fear is that these people don't know me, and I'm sure they despise me, you know, for good reason. Like, I can't. If I reach out to them, my fear is they're going to be like, "You reached out to one of your victims. We're gonna throw you back into jail."
Right.
But I'm almost off probation. I'm off probation. I may write that letter. Listen, there's a guy
I would.
in my case that, this is horrible. There's a guy in my case that I cooperated against. Okay? I would love to talk to him. He's out. I would love to reach out to him and say, hey, bro, what happened with, and this is a funny thing about him. I know him because we hung out in prison, and I know that he would be like, you motherfucker. Okay, here's what happened.
Like he wouldn't actually be mad.
He wouldn't be mad. I know he's not mad already because he's spoken with people that came and talked to me, and they're like, he's not even upset. Like he said he would have done the same thing to you. You know, he was already cooperating. He was already cooperating against his co-defendant.
The fuck did he say, right?
Right. Like, you can't be mad at me. You're already cutting dudes' throats.
Yeah.
You just fucked up and talked to the wrong dude. You know, so I got you. You would have gotten me. But I'd love to talk to him because I really, this is horrible to say, this is straight psychopath behavior. But I liked him. I liked the guy.
I mean, I don't really think it's psychopath. I think it's honest, right?
You were at that point, you were a means to an end, and I didn't want to do the time. I love these guys. I always talk to these guys in prison who would come to you. They're calling everybody snitches.
Yeah.
But then when you find out that they cooperated, they're like, no, but you don't understand. See, my cousin did this. I understand. I do. Everybody can justify what they did. And then I'm always my justification is what? I didn't want to do the prison time.
Yeah, he went to straight up.
Right. It's okay. I'm okay with that.
I've never seen anything like it, right? I mean, like a gangster, like a person you don't want to have a problem with someone like this. And they go up to him, they'd be like, so I heard you rat. And he goes, and this, like, my height. He go, yeah, I don't want to do the prison time. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't come. I'm like, I didn't come here to make friends.
He would shock the person so bad that they would just be like, oh, okay.
Yeah, what are they going to say? I don't want to do the time, and I didn't come here to make friends. And if you and I aren't going to be friends, well, that just breaks my heart.
And how much was the best when these guys would say that they're not rats? And we'd be like, hey, yeah, but you got a 5K1. SK, what is it, 5K1?
5K1.
And they'd be like, no, it's an SK51. No, there's only a 5K1.
No, there's a 5K1 and a Rule 35.
Rule 35, right? But they would add, the guys I talked, they would add an S to it. And I go, what the fuck does an S mean?
Does that mean you have multiple people?
Right. And they was like, well, no, an S is just that when I was in the interview with them, I answered their questions. And I go, but it says K1, right? Right. There's the K and the 1 is there, right? But no. Oh, okay.
Or no, all I ever did was proffer.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
which is you cooperated.
Yeah.
Like that, trust me, you gave them something to give to reduce your sentence. They considered that substantial assistance. Any substantial assistance is cooperation.
Right. And the proffer you sign, if under oath, we're going to ask you, and if you don't answer, you're going the fuck away.
Right. And if we need you and we arrest anybody on your information, you promise to testify.
Yeah.
So these guys are like, well, I only told them what they already knew, and they're like, bro, you don't have to justify it to me. I'm with you. Fuck them dudes.
Yeah.
So, with back to the home title lock thing, so when I used to watch those commercials in prison, I would sit there and think, they don't know anybody. Like these guys, they talk to the lawyer, they talk to somebody from Home Title Lock, they've talked to multiple FBI agents, victims. They don't have a guy that was arrested for title fraud to interview. Because while you're in prison, guys like me are doing really one of two things, right? They're trying to think of how they can get out and reinvent themselves in some way. They're going to do a speaking tour. They're going to open a place that helps protect people from people like them, which is fine. Because I know a bunch of guys that genuinely do that, by the way. Like that's like there's this guy, Brett Johnson. Listen, you should interview this guy. He is amazing. He was interviewed by Lex Friedman. I think he's got 7.5 million views. Brett Johnson.
I know who that. He's a heavyset guy. Bought it. Didn't he do a bunch of time or something? Maybe not.
On and off, maybe 5 or 10 years. But they call him the They call him the Godfather. No, they call
the Godfather. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the Godfather of cybercrime.
I watched it. Yeah.
Oh, he's had documentaries made about him. He's
I watched him on live.
Hilarious. He's great. So Lex. But Brett does this for real. Like he consults with people. Like he's actually completely changed his tune to the point where it's almost obnoxious. He's so upset and irritated about fraud. It's like, okay, I get it. Like, you're a good guy. Stop. No, you don't understand what this guy's doing is this. Oh, stop being offended. You were doing the same thing fucking 20 years ago. Like, I understand he's a bad guy. We're going to get him. I hear you, but he's really irritated.
You know what he's doing, though? He's working to be a speaker.
No, he is a speaker. Are you kidding me? Listen, I don't even want to tell you. I don't even want to tell you what his my speaking fees are an absolute joke. He's flying out to like Dubai.
Him?
I'm off camera. I'll tell you what his fees are. You're going to be like, are you out of your mind? It's insane.
The same guy we're talking about, like bald-headed guy, kind of. He was just on Lex. I know who it is.
Wow. Yeah, bald-headed. He's got.
And then he gets real defensive, like everybody's the worst guy on the planet. That's why I said he's working to be a speaker. I didn't know that.
No, he's a great speaker. He does consulting, does speaking engagements. He's working on. He's got a book coming out. They've optioned the life rights, which let's be honest. I have no doubt he would be amazing. He's not just like he's not like a geeky.
Nah, he's got charisma guy. Like you.
He's fallen in love with strippers.
Yeah.
He's doing blow. Like, he's a maniac.
Throw a little Belford in there.
Yeah, he's
a little Jordan Belfort in there.
He's not some guy who's like, oh, I'm just gonna steal some money and spend it on Star Wars toys.
And looking at him, you would never think he would be that type of guy. I think he'd be like on a motorcycle with a fucking leather jacket on.
I think he lives in Alabama now. He talks with a real thick accent, very loud, and super funny. Anyway, the point is that I'm in prison watching that commercial going, I'll bet. So there's two kinds of people. One, like Brett Johnson, right? And then there's the other guys who are thinking, when I get out, I'm going to hire, what's the name of the company? It's called, the name of the company is, reputation.com. I'm going to hire reputation.com to bury all the newspaper articles about me. I'm going to change my name. I'm going to, and it's like I'm going to start my life over again by shuffling, whatever, getting rid of that old life and start my life over again as a new person, maybe change my name, maybe use my middle name, get rid of all those articles so I can basically reintegrate myself into the financial world or do something legitimate. The problem is if that's your thought process, what's really going to happen is the moment things go bad for you, you're going back to fraud. Because you always think, I'm going to do something legitimate when I get out. But the truth is, once you've done fraud, the highest recidivism rate out there is fraud. It's not drugs, it's fraud. The moment things go bad, you're going to go back to fraud. Because you're just mentally, very few people can break that, mold or, break out of that mindset, because your go-to move under stress is commit fraud. And I always love the guys that talk to me. They're like, yeah, bro, but you're so fucking smart. Like, you could have done something legitimate. Like, nothing legitimate is going to pay me like fraud.
Right.
I can put something together in 2 hours and steal $800,000. Sorry, I can't go, I'm going to open up a carpet cleaning company. I'm going to open up nothing. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to, right. It's just a matter of time before I'm doing
You're dead.
Right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to sell cars. Like, you're not making $800,000 in 2 months selling cars.
Get that out of your head.
Right. So the point is that, these guys, and while they're sitting there, I was the only guy in prison that was sitting there going, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to lean into this. This is who I am. This is what I did. This is what I deserve. I'm going to tell every single person I met, I just got out of prison. Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm going to try and do. And I'm going to try and write true crime stories, and I'm going to start a podcast, and I'm going to do all those things. And if I have to live in someone's spare room the rest of my fucking life, it's better than this place. And if that's what happens, then that's what I got coming. I'm okay with that. So, of course, I'm also an old man. And life's already over. So I had this low.
Great hair, though. I always bring up your hair.
Well, because it was Bank of America's hair. Like, this
I
is
still
two
have
hair
it written
transplants.
down where you got that done by.
There's 2 hair transplants that Bank of America paid for.
Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
How long ago was that hair? I bring it up all the time on the podcast.
20 years.
20 years. He got it done once. I have it written down.
I
Tennessee.
did twice. I did 2 surgeries.
Men's Hair Club, Tennessee, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll never fucking forget that. The second I see it.
Too late for me.
Can he get it done? Does he have a shot?
Well, I'll have to take a look at the
We'll have to do a podcast.
Yeah. But anyway, my point is that is that I was the only person that I knew that was in prison saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get out. I'm not going to shy away from it. And I'm not going to do what you guys do. Or like, I'm going to deal with it. And you know what? Like, I remember thinking, like, you're not going to have a girlfriend. You're not going to get married. You're not going to do, like, all of these things are not happening. You're going to stay in someone's spare room. You're going to keep your expectations of life low. You're going to get off probation. You're going to try and put something together. Maybe you sell some of these life rights deals for these guys you've written stories about. Like, you're going to do that, and that's okay. That's a good life, and it's fine. You know, of course, it didn't work out like that. Like, it worked out, like, much, much better. But I think it worked out better because my expectations were so low and because I was so willing to accept everything I'd done. And so I think good things just happened. It was just going to be overly honest because not being honest, I knew, was going to get me back to prison. So I thought I'm going to be overly honest to the point where it's obnoxious. Like, I'm going to be like, okay, listen, I'm letting you know this is what I'm willing to do. And if it doesn't work out like that, I'm not going to pay you back. So if you want to give me that money, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm telling you there's a good chance it's not going to work. So don't come to me and say you thought it was going to work. And then I'm going to do exactly what I said I was going to do. Like, that's the kind of thing so that I had decided. So when I got out of prison, well, when I was in prison, I'm watching that commercial. I thought, you know what? You should contact them. You should contact them. Like, I'll bet that's the problem. They can't find anybody like you. Or if they do find someone like you, those people don't want they don't want their face shown. Because you can find someone like me just by looking in the newspaper articles, and he gets out of prison and you contact him, but he doesn't want to do an infomercial. He doesn't
tell the truth.
Yeah, one, he's probably all these guys are like, oh, you don't understand what happened. It was a mistake. It was okay, whatever.
Meanwhile.
Yeah. So I got out of when I got in the halfway house. So I used to watch that program all the time. And when I got out and I got out of the halfway house and I was living in someone's spare room and I got a booking agent and he was pushing me to start a podcast. He said, have you ever seen these home title lock commercials? And I went,
You never brought it up. He brought it up.
He brought it up. Listen, I'd almost forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And because I wasn't watching TV anymore, I don't even have, like, I had like YouTube. I think I had Hulu because it was like $3.90 a month. But I mean, all I've got is my phone. Like, this is all I've got.
That's your TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I don't have a TV. I have my phone. That's it. So, so we're sitting there and he called me up. He's like, what? And I said, yeah. He said, would you be interested in maybe talking with them or seeing if they'd possibly hire you to be like a spokesperson or be in those commercials? And I was like, yeah, it's funny. I used to watch those commercials. And I told him that. He's like, oh, well, let me reach out to him. I said, okay. And an hour later, he texted me and he said, hey, I just talked to this woman. She's going to reach out to you. She says she's very interested. They've been looking for someone like you. And I get an email 5 minutes later from, I don't know what her name is, Mr. Cox, my name is Laura Johnson. I'm, I work for Home Title Lock. We're in charge of the production team, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just on and on and on. We would love to speak with you on the phone. When can we arrange a Zoom meeting? Blah,
and just for the record, no LifeLock, HomeLock, any company like that, you don't get a reply in an hour. Get alone 15 minutes after that. That just doesn't happen.
They were ecstatic. So I get on a Zoom meeting, talk to them a couple months later because they had scheduled, they were doing another commercial, right? They were doing like one every year or two, and they were actually coming up in a couple months. She's like, it's coming up in a couple months. So we negotiate like how much they're going to pay me, and by that point, I'm already doing speaking engagements. At this point, I'm being flown to Puerto Rico to have lunch with investors who I'm basically entertainment. I'm going to speak to at mortgage conventions where I talk in front of 400 loan officers and underwriters, and so they fly me out to Oklahoma. I was there for a couple days. They met Newt Gingrich, shot a bunch of commercials, and that happened. And then like a year later, I did another one for them. And it's funny because the second one I did, they did an interview where they interviewed me. So they have this guy interview me, and I'm just saying what naturally comes to my mind, right? And let me tell you something. When I was done, first of all, there's 10 people sitting around, multiple cameras. Like, it's like a huge deal. They've rented out. It was a library. They've got this huge production. They've spent a lot of money on it. So we'd driven through neighborhoods. So they got you've got a camera system in the car. I'm driving through the neighborhood. I'm like, I would go drive through a neighborhood like this, and I would find a house like, this house looks good. This house looks good. I go, to be honest, they all look good to me. You know what I'm saying? And like, I'm making these jokes and stuff.
Foaming at the mouth.
And I'm laughing. Yeah. I'm laughing about it. And I'm, not behaving like someone who is contrite and apologetic and sorrowful. I'm saying all these things. Then when they interview me, I'm giving them just complete psychopath answers. They're like, so when something like this happens, so did you ever feel bad about it? I was like, bad about what? And they're like, about like going in and knowing this person has a house and you're going to take the house and take that it's going to cause them problems. And I was like, no. And they were like, well, why not? And I go, because I'm a psychopath. And I went,
you're like, what the fuck?
And they were like, is that how you feel? And I was like, listen. I felt like, okay, let me explain.
Let's hold the table right now. Okay.
I said, about 1 or 2% of society have antisocial disorder, which I said under antisocial disorder follows like psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists. Like I start, naming them off. I said, those people break the law. Some of them become CEOs, presidents, CEOs.
Break the law on the way up.
Right. But
this episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Are you the man your father was? Recent studies have shown that men's testosterone levels have dropped substantially since the 1980s at about an average of 1% per year. Think about how old your father was when he was born. For example, if he was 30, your testosterone levels could be 30% lower than his. Low testosterone levels can have all type of health effects on men. It can affect your mood, sex drive, memory, muscle mass loss, you name it. And yes, low testosterone is more common the older you get, but it can affect men at any age. So let's talk about today's sponsor, Let's Get Checked. You can order a testing kit that will be delivered to you in a discreet packaging with next-day delivery. Once your sample arrives in the laboratory, confidential results will be available from your secure online account within 2 to 5 days. So, if you want to test your hormone levels without having to leave your home, visit trylgc.com/MSCS Media and get 25% off your test using the code MSCS Media. The link is in the description at the top.
Most of them end up criminals. I said, so 1% of our society is currently incarcerated. I said 99% of incarcerated individuals are psychopaths. So or whatever. Yeah. I said are sociopaths or they have personality disorder, and so I explained personality. I'm sorry. They have they're antisocial, which means I'm not concerned how my actions affect society. I'm only concerned about me, and that's a criminal. And so I said, so for you to think that if you're reliant on me as a criminal to feel for my victims, said that's your opinion of me means about as much as that stick of furniture's opinion of me.
You said that to him in there?
I was like, so if that's what you're relying on, I said, you're delusional, bro. Like I kind of laugh about it. I said, I don't know what people are thinking. Like I go on like a little rant when I'm done, and they asked a few more questions, and when I'm done, they did the whole thing like, well, how long were you on the run? I was like, I was on the run for 3 years. They were like, were you worried? I was like, worried about what? Getting caught? And they're like, no. I'm like, or they're like, yeah, being caught. And I went, I know the right thing to say. I said, like, I'm not a complete lunatic. Like, I know what people want to hear. And typically, if it's in my interest, I'll give them that answer. I said, because that's what they want to hear, and I need something from you. I said, but I don't need anything from you guys because your check's already cleared. I said that the true answer is...
True, Matt.
The true answer is, I said, no. Being on the run was some of the best part of my life. I said, I'm not some idiot driving a stolen car with a broken taillight and a dead body in the trunk. I said, I'm driving a vehicle in my name. I have a driver's license issued by the state. I have full coverage insurance. It's probably financed in my name, and I've got a perfect driving record, and I got a driver's license that was issued by the state. You can pull me over, give me a ticket. I said, bro, I got so many tickets as a guy that I'd stolen his identity. I got so many tickets. I said, I had to go to driving school so he didn't lose his license. and they're just like, oh my, like they're trying not to laugh. They're like, oh my. When it was done, one of the guys, I said, I go, is that all right? Are we good? One of the guys stands up and he goes, bro, that may very well be the most amazing interview I've ever videoed. And another guy goes, I was just thinking that. He's better than so-and-so. And they're like, oh my God, yeah. Oh, he's nothing compared to he's like, I've never seen anybody that would that they're like, this is gold. Then they shot the commercial, and when I watched it, they actually had the guy I used to deal with, his name was Keith. Keith said we had multiple meetings with the owner of Home Title Lock that the owner made them reshoot the commercial multiple times because he was like, the guy is terrifying. You're scaring our customer. Like he's saying things and he's like, no, but that's what he said. I mean, I think it's good. People need to know there's guys like this out there and this is how they think. They're like, I don't care. We're talking about people that are in their 50s and 60s. They have houses. Like, I don't want to frighten them. I want them to be educated. I don't want to scare them. You know, like I'm not trying to
scare them. When you like as a marketing company, I'm just curious to know what you think.
I think sometimes for someone's best interest, you have to scare them with the truth. But he's saying, look, we are trying to educate them. Like he doesn't want to. I think they don't want to be accused of fear mongering. Like
so you buy it,
right? So he's like, I don't want to scare people into buying my product. I want them to feel educated. And Matt says scary things. You can't put that out. So they cherry pick what they put out that doesn't make me sound too ridiculous. What was so funny is Keith said the first time when I was interviewed by Newt, they got into a huge. Keith said we got into an argument with him because when I said the whole thing, I said if you're expecting, if you're thinking that this can't happen to you, I go, you're delusional. And they kept that you're delusional thing. Listen, there's memes of me saying you're delusional. There's like, and that was the tamest thing that I said. Newt at the end of it he was like, well, because I said crazy stuff to him. He goes, well, thank you for your, and he hesitates for your honesty. Like he didn't know what, he didn't want to say anything nice because he's like, you're a psychopath. Like get this guy out of here. Like he didn't want to like thank me really because he kind of felt like listen, you're terrifying. The things you're saying nobody says, even though it's the truth. Look, most guys you talk to, it's funny because in prison you have those conversations where it's just two guys and all the crap is dropped away, and you have these conversations of two psychopaths having a conversation that is just blatantly. You'll never hear a more honest conversation. There's no please, there's no thank you, there's no pretenses. I'm not saying the right thing because I'm trying to impress you or I need something from you or I want you to think nicely of me. It's two guys just blatantly saying what comes to their mind. And some of those conversations are terrifying, but they're extremely honest, right? And then when they get back into the real world, they throw on all the pretenses of, I was on the run and, I'll be honest, I was anxious all the time. I was always looking over my shoulder and I didn't know what to do. I miss my family so much. God, I love my kids. And they say all the things that they know people want to hear, but they didn't feel like that.
No.
That's a lie. No. It's like these guys that are like, I always love this. It's like the guys that are upset with people who cooperate. Well, I wouldn't cooperate. Why? Because I have principles. You have principles? Bro, if you had principles, you wouldn't be robbing banks. You're sticking guns in pregnant women's faces and telling them to get on the ground. And
but I'm not a rat, though.
Right. I'm not right. Like that just means you're an idiot. That means that once you got caught, you wouldn't take responsibility. Like you have even less principles now.
See, I'm a psychopath because I would have made that commercial to scare you to death so you buy the product.
Yeah, I know, but
that's what I would have done.
But they didn't edit it. I mean, you didn't edit it.
Right.
They edit. So when I watched it, I was like, God, I said some good stuff. And they're like, no, you're not. No. Like that. Listen, the marketing guys loved me.
Yeah, because they knew.
The owner.
Yeah, because he's in his office and isn't in touch with the real world, in my opinion.
Well, I think he's probably very in touch with his customers. And I think there's media kind of a backlash on trying to scare people. And he's probably been through it. He owns this company. He's not a stupid guy. He's a very sharp guy. So he knows. But I think the marketing guys are only concerned about sales.
Right.
They're not concerned about it's like.
Well, they're getting the kick on the sales. So,
right. It's like the marketing chick that put Modine or whatever.
Yeah.
Like she doesn't know she's trying to open up a different. What was the guy's name? The guy girl, boy girl that they put on there.
I forget her. I forget.
On the Bud Light thing.
Yeah, I forget the name, but
so they
cost them a lot though.
Yeah, but the marketing chick is thinking we're trying to open up a different demographic, not realizing by doing that we're insulting our current
50-year customers
base. Right. Not realizing that. So it was detrimental. And I think that the home title lock person was very in touch with who his base is.
True.
And the marketing person is thinking, we're trying to open up a different avenue. And he's thinking that not at the expense of our base.
That's a great point. When you compare Bud Light to that, great point. He knows his customers.
And he's
but that's why we're psychopaths, and he's not.
He's also, it's also home title lock is massive.
Yeah,
like
huge.
their only competition, I think, is
Aurora.
No. I mean, like I'm not.
I have Aurora. It's kind of similar.
They have a base, but I'm saying like home title lock is so far. You know what it reminds me of? It's like I did the Lex Friedman thing, right? Guys are like, bro, Lex Friedman, like he's just below Joe Rogan. I'm like,
are you kidding me?
And I'm like, okay, you make that sound like it's like 1, 2. Yes, the difference is Joe Rogan has 40%, and Lex Friedman is just below him at 12%. Like the margin is massive.
Massive.
Like it's not like they're neck and neck. No.
No.
Joe Rogan would die and still be ahead of him for the next 10 years.
Like you and I are on the streets. Lex is he's in the halfway house, right? Rogan is in the mansion. He's in Mar-a-Lago before it was worth $18 million.
He was super cool though, by the way. He was exactly like you think he would be. Very, he smiles, he laughs, but yeah, he was actually pretty cool.
So when I saw that, you said it was what, 7 hours, 6 hours altogether?
7.5. You know what? It's funny when we were finally done because we took like 2 breaks. When we were finally done, he goes, he has a little clock, like a little clock facing him that I guess he looks at, which is a good idea. I should get one of those. He finally stopped it. He said, "How long do you think it was?" And I went, I was like, God, at least 3 hours, 4 hours. And he goes, 7.5 hours. I go, get the fuck out of here. 7.5 hours. And I immediately thought, because he had me put my phone on airplane mode. My wife was kind of like she is here. She's out on the beach. She was on the beach. 7.5 hours. I was like, oh my God. I turn on my phone and I mean, there's only probably 5 or 6. And it was really her saying, hey, I'm here. I'm at the beach. Hey, getting lunch. Hey, how close are you? Hey, I guess you're on the podcast. Hey, then it was, hey, I don't know what's happening. Hey, I'm in the lobby. Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, I'm in the car. And so I start trying to call her and text her. She's not answering. She went in the car, climbed in the car, climbed in the back, fell asleep. He was asleep for like an hour or so. She's like, oh, I've been in here for like an hour or 2. I'm exhausted. I've been in the sun, walking around.
Dead.
She wasn't upset. I thought she was going to be furious, but she was like,
Back to that LifeLock thing quick. Now, you always say, like, people think, oh, the technology, it can't be done. Can it be done now just as easy as it was when you were doing it, but just a different way?
No, I would say it's easier now to steal someone's house.
Now.
It is easier now to steal someone's house.
That's wild.
So when I did it, you had to have, I have a certain skill set that is expansive, right? So a lot of people, like, let's say somebody could figure out how to steal your house. That's great. You figured it out. And you think, I figured out how to steal the guy's house. Yeah, but you did it in your name. So, okay, well, how else am I going to do it? Well, you have to steal someone's identity. How do you steal someone's identity? Okay, well, I have somebody's identity. Okay, does it lead back to you? You have to be able to get someone's identity where it doesn't lead back to you. Okay, yes, I found somebody's identity that I have the information for them that doesn't lead to me. Okay, great. Can you open a bank account in that person's name? Well, I would need a driver's license, right? So now how can you get the information and get the driver's license? Well, you have to be able to, I don't know. I need a birth certificate, and I need a birth certificate. I need their social security number, and I need proof of residency. Right. Can you do that? Can you get those documents? How do I get those documents? So you have to figure out how to order those documents online. When you order those documents online, one of the things they ask you for is a copy of your driver's license, which you don't have. So you have to be able to fake a copy of a driver's license, or come up with an original document to mail to Social Security. You have to actually mail them the document. So now I have to figure out how to come up with an original identification document, either an ID, a driver's license, a military ID, a school ID, an employer ID, and it has to have the right information on it. It has to have your date of birth, has to have when it expires, has to have your full name, has to have it's all these things it has to have, and you have to be able to make that document, mail it off, and get your social security number. Once you get social, you also have to be able to get your birth certificate. You have to be able to get a copy of your driver's license or an ID or military, whatever. Just a copy, which is easy for someone to do, like me. Most people can't do that. But let's say you could get Photoshop and figure it out. You probably can't, but let's say you could. Let's say you became proficient at Photoshop, which most people can't or aren't. So you have to teach yourself Photoshop. So now you can make one, print it out, black and white, so it looks like you laid it down, mail it off to get this person's birth certificate. Then you have to register to vote in their name, or get a lease agreement in their name. You have to get a lease agreement, figure out how to fill it out. And you have to have an address where you can receive mail that doesn't come to you. You can't have it come to your house, so where's it getting mailed to? Oh, I'll get a P.O. box. What are you, an idiot? How are you opening a P.O. box? You have to be able to open the P.O. box. You have to get the driver's license before you, there's so many things, and even when this is all said and done, and let's say you can get the ID or a driver's license, you're going back to square one, where you have to be able to create the documents, file the documents to get a hold of the property. The person, they could live there. Like, I've done it before where the person lived in the house and I borrowed 3 mortgages. It's highly listen, cops came, they didn't arrest him. They handcuffed the guy. They took him downtown. They questioned him for 4 hours. They thought he was involved. I borrowed 3 mortgages in his name, and he'd been to prison. So they think he's involved. He's sitting there going, what the? I didn't do anything.
Good pick, buddy.
I know. Listen, if that had completely gone all the way through, he would have had some real problems. But the point is now you have to acquire the property. How do you acquire the property? You're basically probably better off getting a rental property or buying the property. You have to be able to acquire that property. So you're going to have to put money down to get this guy to owner finance it, or be able to go and get money from a bank. Let's say you want to buy the property, get money from the bank. Can you make W-2s? Can you make pay stubs? Now, luckily, you can go online now and go to paystubs.org or something and order them and that sort of thing. You have to know how to calculate the debt-to-income ratio so you make enough money, but not so much that it looks weird, and they file a 4506 and ask for your taxes from the IRS. You have to make just enough to debt ratio, just enough to buy the house, but not so much it looks weird, and not too little where they won't lend you the money. And you have to open up a bank account, and you have to be able to put enough money to put a down payment down on the house. Do you have 20 grand? Because if you had 20 grand, you're probably not out committing fraud. And you have to let that money season, which means you have to have kept that money in the bank for 90 days, for 60 to 90 days.
Yep.
So the complication of all of these things, it's such a massive thing that's what hinders people from doing this. So now what's happened is, so can that be done? Yes. In a lot of ways, it's much easier to do it now because so many things can be done online. You can now order a Florida driver's license or an Alabama driver's license or whatever, Texas, California, online. You can go to a Russian website. They're not all Russian. They're different ones. There's one in the U.S. But you go there, you pay them $300 bucks, you give them the information, send them a JPEG, a picture of you, and they send you back a driver's license that looks like it's a Florida ID.
And it scans?
Yeah, it can scan, but you can't. If you get pulled over by the cops, it's not going to show up.
Right. This is just for this.
Yeah. They're going to be like, "Oh, get out of the vehicle."
See you later.
But you can go into the bank because they don't have access to the DMV. You can go. You could use it for certain things, right? Enough. So I didn't have that luxury. I had to figure out how to go into the DMV and get them to issue it. You want to talk about nervous and scared? I've never been so scared in my life walking there. There's a sheriff's deputy standing in the corner. The whole time you're in there for the 45 minutes, you feel like he's staring at you. So, you have to figure out how to do that. Like now you wouldn't have to do that.
All online.
You get the pay stubs, W-2s, you could get the ID online. You could do it all sitting in a Starbucks with your laptop. So the IP address doesn't come back to your house. Like there's so many ways to get caught. There's so many ways to get around it. If you were smart, you could probably pull it off, but you'd probably have to get arrested a few times to really work out the kinks. And if you want to do that, that's cool. You could do that. So can it be done? Absolutely can be done. But the easier way to do it now is this. This is what's really happening now. It's kind of like tax fraud, where people would go and they would file for people's taxes before the real citizen can file for his own taxes from Walmart. Somebody else goes in and files like the day your taxes you're able to kind of file. They'd file and say, hey, I made $75,000 working for Waterbed Warehouse. And they send in a W-2 and they file the 1040s, and then they have them direct deposited onto a debit card, $6,000, and then they take the money out. And then when the guy that works at Walmart, the same guy, same information, he files, the IRS comes back and says, you've already received your tax refund. And when did you work for Walmart? You work for here. Like, okay, now he has to fix that. So that used to be complicated. But what happens is once it hits the streets, once you start arresting these guys, they go to prison. They tell everybody else how to do it. Those guys get out, they start doing it. And you take a sophisticated crime and you dumb it down to drug dealer level. And the drug dealers, even though they don't really know how it works, what they do know, I can go and get this bookkeeper and pay them $50, and she'll make me a W-2 for this person. And I can go get a welfare recipient and get her information and have the W-2 placed in her name. And I can file the 1040s for her, even though she's on welfare, and I can get the money, and she didn't do it.
And now you're dealing with a criminal enterprise that has the resources to do it.
Dozens and dozens of gang members doing it. Listen, I remember I met a guy.
That's the way to do it nowadays.
I met a guy in prison, and black guy, tattoos, spoke horribly. And I was talking, I was like, what are you in for? And I go, like drugs? What? And he goes, drugs. He goes, nobody sells drugs anymore. He goes, I'm here for tax fraud. I went, tax fraud? And he goes, yeah, I mean, they call it the drop.
Is that what they call it?
Drop that money. Like we're trying to get the IRS to drop that money. He goes, yeah, I'm here for the drop. And I was like, how much? It was like 1.5 million. I'm like, oh my God.
Good luck on that drop.
Right. I was like, where were you? What? And he's like, yeah, man. He said, I did 145, whatever. I got set between $7,000 and $9,000 back. I had a chick that was filing it for me. I was going around getting homeless people's information. I was getting welfare women that get checks and stuff, getting their information, getting their kids' social security cards, filing in their names. I mean, they were doing insane shit. Did it for like 2-3 years, and then eventually he said somebody got caught that I was showed how to do it. He got caught because something happened, and then he rolled over on me, and I got caught, and now I'm here.
Probably read your book.
So it's easier now. What they do now is guys know enough to go out and they'll try and find a property where it's paid off, or it's got a mortgage on it, but it's abandoned, or it's a rental property, or something along those lines, and then where they have access to the property. Sometimes they don't. The more sophisticated guys, you can be living in the house, and I'll do it right out from underneath you. So, but a lot of these guys will go out and they'll find properties that, like I said, they have a mortgage, but it's a rental property, or it's abandoned, or it's up for sale. Especially people put their house up for sale. That's a great one, because they're not living there, right? Like if you're not living there, then it's easy. Or even if they live there, you can have the appraiser go in. They think it's their house. Hey, I had somebody thinking about buying your house. I'm going to have an appraiser come. They'll let them in. They'll work with you to defraud.
Yeah.
So you've got guys that'll go find a house or a piece of property that's abandoned, or up for rent or whatever, and then they'll satisfy the loan, transfer the deed, and they can't get fake IDs and stuff, so they'll transfer the deed into some drug addict that works for them or that they sell drugs to, and they'll just give them drugs to put this in your name. Then they'll go open up a couple bank accounts. They'll open up a bank account or two, and then they'll have them go in and sign the documents because they're on drugs, and they're thinking, look, if they ever even catch you, you're only going to do 6 months. And they want to believe that. And they borrow a couple mortgages, or they sell the property, and then the money goes in the bank account. They take the money out. They keep giving the guy drugs. And then they take off with the money. And the guy, once he gets caught, one day he gets, one day he gets arrested for vagrancy. And the cops get him in there, and they find out there's a warrant for bank fraud or wire fraud or whatever. And they're like, well, there's a you're wanted for what? For looks like you stole $800,000. Like, what?
The guy's like, I just got high.
Right. 3 years ago, you went in here. We have an ID. We have your ID. Is this you? Is this yeah, but you don't understand that guy, such and such. He told me this and he did this, and I'll cooperate. Okay, what's his name? He goes by Pookie. Oh,
that
Pookie.
Narrows it down.
We know exactly who Pookie, because there's nobody else in the projects named Pookie.
Right.
So, they never catch up to the guy, or if they do, you've got this crackhead. He can't really help. It's been 3 years ago. The case is cold. The guy got $800,000.
And they got fall guys now too.
Well, that is the fall guy.
But I mean, they have like all the ones on top of that too, like the real sophisticated ones.
Well, it doesn't matter. Even if you caught me,
what are you gonna do? You don't even know who you
Pookie can't testify.
Right.
Like it's gonna be him going, oh yeah, that's the guy. Oh, I'm sorry, not Pookie. I'm sorry. The crackhead can't testify against Pookie.
He doesn't even know who Pookie is.
Yeah, even if they catch Pookie and he goes, yeah, that's the guy. His name, he called himself Pookie. He's the guy that did it. Okay,
prove it.
How?
Well, it looks like him.
Yeah. So your word, a guy that clearly opened up 3 bank accounts, borrowed or sold a $800,000 house, put the money in the bank accounts, went to a closing, who satisfied the loan on the house and transferred the deed into your name, and then put the house up for sale, sold it, went to the closing, did all the things that you did. You're telling me it's Pookie. He's the mastermind. And let's face it, it's in your best interest that they believe Pookie is the mastermind, because then you don't have to do 8 years in prison. You can do 4. So
I'll take it. Right?
Yeah.
That's how
Pookie's saying, you got nothing on me, bro.
Yeah.
And that's it. Look, they wouldn't even indict the dude. That guy, Pookie's not even going to get on. They're not going to do it. They're going to be like, yeah, that's not enough. You pointing him out isn't enough.
We'll take our 4 years or conviction rate. Boom.
No, they're going to give him 8 years. You're doing 8 years. I'm not even going to arrest this guy. I'm not even going to arrest Pookie. You're going to do 8 years. No, but it's him. I don't care. Your word isn't enough.
Yeah.
But I drove straight to his house. Like, I don't care. Like, they'd have to search Pookie and find a bunch of evidence. But by that, Pookie's smart. He's gotten rid of all the evidence.
By that time, Pookie's in fucking...
It's been 3 years.
Another country, another state, far away.
What if it's 7 years? What if it's 6 or 7 or 8 years before they even catch this guy?
Never going to happen.
Right? Because let's face it, homeless people don't have a lot of interaction with police, right? Like, I mean, I know this because I've surveyed 50 to 100 homeless people.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the ways I would get my documents, is I would survey homeless people and get their information. Then I go get a driver's license and a passport and their name. And I've been in and out of the United States. I've been to like 7 or 8 different countries with passports that are actually homeless people. Yeah. Yeah, that's what just happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, matter of fact, I'm probably the only person I ever met in federal prison. 2 of my charges are passport fraud, use of a fraudulent passport, and application for a false passport.
I didn't even know it was a charge.
Yeah. Well,
passport fraud, but not application fraud.
Yeah.
I thought they
just, if you don't have to get the passport. Like, mine was use of a fraudulent passport, but just applying. Because I lied on the application.
Right.
I showed up and said, hey, this is me. My name is Joseph Carter. And they went, oh, that is you. Okay. I got a passport as Joseph Carter and traveled as Joseph Carter in and out of the country. I'm telling you.
Well, you were the best of the best.
Felt like James Bond.
You were James Bond.
You got 6 or 8 passports in a box of you with different names. That's Jason Bourne shit.
That's Jason Bourne shit.
Yeah.
Right? America's Most Wanted, the trips. Whew.
Well, it's fun looking back on it now.
Yeah, now.
You know,
right.
well, it was
not
fun
to
at the-
say
it was
fun
fun
at the time.
It
The
was
sentencing, not so
that
good.
wasn't fun.
That wasn't fun. The time wasn't fun.
Yes, the time wasn't fun. But now,
Looking back,
because I got out, you know, and I'm reformed, you know, and I'm doing stuff now that's working, you know, helping me. So now it's fun to kind of talk about and joke around about. But
what's funny is when you had sent me that TikTok thing, you know, I didn't even know you can make that kind of money on TikTok. 3 days later, they started this TikTok shit, ban it. In my opinion, it's no different than the other ones. And if they go through with that, Zuckerberg's going to come in and buy it. And then it's going to be a one social media platform that Zuckerberg owns, controlled by the government. And they're just using TikTok because it has that China behind it. Now, it may be a little bit worse than the other ones, but to me, it's really not that worse. But if it's a way of getting to that one world government or partial one world government, and I think it's a dangerous thing if they can it. And not only that, but like people like you and many other people making a living off of that, way more than they would at a regular job.
yeah,
Just so that they can control everything in the big picture.
yeah, I was gonna say we make some money off TikTok, not a ton, but yeah, but they do pay, right? Like, you know, whatever we make, whatever, $1,000 or so off TikTok. Like, but most of my income is from YouTube and Spotify.
But say you just had.
But
Say
I
you
hear
started
you.
TikTok, right? You just had a kid. Now you make an extra 1,000.
Oh, listen,
It's huge.
no, you're right. $1,000, $2,000 a month, like is good
500,
money,
right?
Yeah. So, but, yeah, I was gonna say, like, if they do, and all they're really trying to do is force a sale, right? They're trying to force TikTok. If you looked into it, like they haven't banned it. They're saying either we're forcing them to sell it, and it hasn't even passed yet.
But if you
It
look
has
at
to
the
pass the
bill, it
House.
says
As a sale.
any social media company that basically we don't agree with, we can fuck with.
So that's the problem. Like that part of it, I have an issue with, right? Like I don't think any of it should be. I to a degree, I feel like you should be able to say pretty much anything as long as you're not invoking violence of some kind. I think you should be able to say whatever you want to say. you
Yeah.
know? And if you're offended by it, well, then you're offended by it. That's fine. Like you'll be offended. It's okay.
And you have that right to click off of it.
Right. Nobody forced you to watch this. You don't have to watch this. So,
Right.
You know. But yeah, when the government starts saying, "Oh no, this is offensive and this is offensive," and okay, well, wait a minute. You don't get to say what's offensive and what's not offensive. Like
Now, if they do that, does that concern you with YouTube and the rest of
YouTube's
them?
already so conservative, right? I mean, not conservative. It's liberal, but it's so conservative as far as what you can say. I stay away from all politics. You know, if I do have an opinion, it's
Broad.
It's broad. It's a Joe Rogan opinion. It's
Nothing direct.
nothing overt. It's a very general. It's like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with that. Like that makes sense. Like, but I think this, and I'm not saying I'm pro Trump. I'm not saying I'm pro Biden. What I'm saying is, it'd be nice to get somebody in there that everybody trusts. You know, it's like, oh wow, you're like not offending anybody. Even when he makes conservative statements, he's still kind of middle of the road conservative, if that makes sense.
And do you swear on your channel a lot, or do you keep away from that for the ads?
No, I've gotten better. When I got out of prison, I swore all the time. But in the last year or so, I've gotten way better at swearing. And I would use them as crutch words. And so I've gotten way better. I've cursed probably more here than I curse on my platform.
Is that by choice to speak better, or because of
I think
YouTube ads?
I think it's crutch words, and we've gotten a lot of limited monetization videos. And, you know, so what happens is Colby's my editor. He puts it up, limited monetization. And then he'll take it down. Well, he'll do a review. Review comes back, no. And he's, ugh. Then he takes it down. He goes through and he's like, okay, we said this here. He said this here. He said this here. He said this. Okay, that should be enough. Then he puts it back up. Oh, still. Then he goes back. And I don't mind when YouTube says, hey, it's limited monetization. And people think, oh, well, it's just limited. Listen, bro. Limited is the difference between making $1 and making 20 cents. And not only that, it really is more than that. It's more like making $1 to making 2 cents, because the moment it's limited monetization, YouTube, if that video is going to get 200,000 views, they have no incentive to push it, and they're limited on who they can send it to and let watch it. So it doesn't get 200,000, and instead of me making $2,200, I end up making 300. That's not what's happening. What's happening is it doesn't ever get to 200,000. It gets to 12,000. That's it. And then out of the 12, instead of making $150, I make $30. Like, it's massive. The difference is massive. They're like, oh, well, it's just limited. No, it never gets the views. So we work really hard to either bleep out any cussing. It's not just cussing. It's cussing. It's saying things like,
it's something new every week with them.
Right. Well, if you talk about, let's say,
politics, you're fucked.
Well, if you're talking about politics, that's just a bad idea. They're just not going to be okay with it.
Yeah,
so the second thing is, if you talk about people that like young adults who are, on registries and are incarcerated. If you talk about, in prison, they're Mo's or they're
Chomos.
Yeah.
What's the name for them they have now? There's like a name now.
Serious?
Yeah, no, there's actually
They're
a
making
name.
it sound like okay.
No, it is. No, there's a name. It's called interested. It's like interested in minors. There's an actual name. You have like the trans thing. There's an actual minor attracted.
That's disgusting.
That's in California. It's an everyday word. I almost fell over. Like, I had a little 3-year-old walking around. Minor attracted? What are you fucking talking?
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's like the Twilight Zone.
So if you say that, right, you call them what they are at all, or mention it, then they have a problem with that.
Oh, yeah.
If you mention something like, let's say, if you say repeatedly or really like kidnapping, right? Like if you talk about that, like, oh, even though you're talking about it in the context of someone's story, he grabbed this person, tied him up, whatever, and you use the word a couple times, man, that's a problem.
Oh, that's right. When I put up Leak, I was just telling about that video with John Leak with the lady who killed everybody. He's like, be careful with this part. He's like, you might want to chop this. Spotify, you'll be okay. They don't give a fuck. But YouTube, I already got, they made it 18 or older because of the murder. He's like, you want to cut this scene, that scene. I'm like, really?
Oh, it's bad. So, yeah, Colby has to chop them all up. Some of them. But then some of them, some guy will come on. And then sometimes, like, if you say just like the name of a drug. Usually you're okay with saying the name of a drug once or twice, but you ever get the guys that literally, they can't help but, and then we bought this much in the name of the drug, this many bricks of this. And then so I sold this to this. And it's like, Jesus, God Almighty, like in 3 minutes, you've mentioned it 20 times. Like, I understand we're talking about H.
And right.
We could just say drugs.
And you're trying to keep that out. And then they're like, on the way to drop it off, I got nervous. I had to take out the Coke and do a line of the Coke. That's how they are.
Yeah,
now,
like, oh my God.
You're like,
what do you do? Like, you're
no, boy, like Colby.
The whole time I'm sitting there thinking, you're fucking killing me. You're killing me.
No, Colby's thinking, you motherfucker.
What's funny is we've had, then other times we've put up something where I thought, man, it would never get monetized. And it gets monetized and it's fine. And there are other times when they've demonetized stuff and I've been like, why? Like, I don't feel like we said anything that was really that bad. And sometimes it will be because we do prologues. Well, I'm sorry, that's how a book name. That's what you call it in a book. We do it's a hook.
Like the intro thing, like
right. It's an intro hook. So you'll take, like, if the guy suddenly says, so we loaded up the van, and as we're driving, like, boom, that's when I see the police lights, and then boom, it jumps to, and the guy's like, I'm in the woods, and this happens, and bam. That's when, and listen, man, next thing I know, boom, 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 and stuff's blowing up all around me. Then it clips to, he'll take.
That's your intro, right?
Yeah.
And then it goes into it.
But Colby will do like 4 or 5 parts of the video, so you're like, oh, man, he's talking about gunfights, he's talking about outrunning the cops, he's talking about drug deals, he's talking about like crane. Well, this is gonna be great.
It's the trailer,
right? The trailer,
almost.
It's kind of like
20-second trailer.
Colby calls it the hook.
Yeah.
But what he does is he'll use B-roll from movies, which is fine, as long as you put a filter over it. We put the filter over it, so you get this. Bop, bop, bop. The guy's saying, and as he's saying it, boom, this shows up, and Colby's getting good at it.
He's good.
They're good, so they're great, and then we'll sit there and he'll put up the same video 3 times. And then finally one time he'll put it up and it's perfectly fine. Go straight through. And I'll text him like, what happened? It went straight through. It's fine. He's like, I showed in the first, because you have to think the first 5 minutes is what they're focusing on the most. So if you got a 2-hour video and towards the end you saying a bunch of crazy stuff, they don't care so much. It's that first 5 minutes. So he's like, in the first 5 minutes when I talked about them being shooting, he's like, I showed the guy firing an AK-47. And that's it. Like, he clipped it and clipped it and clipped it. And I'm like, so the algorithm will, it's watching it. It notices that's a gun. That guy's firing the gun.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like if you showed a 9mm or something, they don't really care. But this guy's firing an AK-47. Bah, 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 bah. Nope. Demonetized or limited monetization.
Boom.
Right.
Back at it.
So how do you, like, for me, when he first told me that, I thought, it's watching? Like, it's watching the, and then another time I made a hook and it was great. But it kept getting demonetized. And I realized at the very end of this little 20-second spot, I had shown the inside of a grow house. So I showed the marijuana plants. And so I went in, I thought, that's got to be the only thing like that. So I went out and I took it and I showed a lab, like where they're mixing chemicals. Right? So it's kind of benign, right? Like,
yeah.
Put it up. That's all I changed. Bam. Perfectly fine. Fully monetized. Wow. It can see.
I know it can, but over a grow house?
Yeah, well, they might, listen, marijuana you might as well be talking about heroin. You know, for them. Which is, so it's and it is, it's horrible. I love the guys who are like, bro, stop beeping, in the comment section. Stop beeping out all the words, bro. That's, you're bitching up, you're bitching out, or you're that's bullshit, you're censoring. It's like, bro, I am censoring, but I have to get paid on this.
It's a business.
Right. It's a business model. Well, what are you thinking? Like, take the hit for your entertainment? Or the guys will scream like, bro, there's so many, God, man, every 5 minutes you got an ad. And I used to say, God, I'm sorry, you guys. And now I'm like, you know what? Go get YouTube Premiere, you cheap fucker. Like that, you know what I'm saying? Watch Hulu. That's, go get Netflix. Like, hey, there's lots of other stuff that I'll bet you they don't run ads on. Go check them out. I don't work for free. Sorry, I don't know. Maybe you do. I'm not independently wealthy. I don't have a trust fund. I owe the government $5.7 million.
Deal with the ads, motherfucker,
Right.
or change it.
Go somewhere else. Like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. And what's so funny is when I say stuff like, they'll come back and they'll be like, nah, bro, like, I'll deal with it. I get it. Like, if you say something, then they're like, yeah, you're right.
No, yeah. Now, pull up Matt's book, Generation Oxy. If you compare that time, with the oxys, take that time period and that research you did to this fentanyl bullshit. How would you compare the two crises, if you will? Like, everybody's croaking from fentanyl. They're putting it in Xanax. They're putting it in this and that. The oxys was just fed out to everyone and everyone. But do you see a close comparison to that?
I wonder what the death rate is in comparison. I mean, I don't know, because the oxy epidemic in the southern states was just horrible. So, and you know what they were doing? They were bringing them down the I-75. There was just pill mills everywhere. Everybody's getting in them. People are dying. The problem with the fentanyl is that these guys are, I don't know if it's a cartel. I don't know who's putting it, and that's another word, by the way. That they're putting it in all kinds of stuff. It doesn't even make sense. Like, it's so deadly.
I've seen this so many times on American Greed, I can't even count.
Oh, what, this guy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Dodd?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've optioned this 4 times. They just re-optioned it a little over a year, about 18 months ago. They optioned it to...
Movie?
Oh, yeah, it's been optioned. It was optioned when I was in prison.
Yeah.
It was optioned when I was in prison, and then it was optioned when I got out of prison, which was great because I needed that money. And then they optioned it again about a little over a year ago, maybe coming up on 18 months. They optioned it every 18 months. Supposedly, hold on, let me think. Who is it? Is it, I want to say AMC, not AMC.
The movie place.
Yeah, it's like Warner had it for a while, and then they just sold it to, is it GMC or who's a big studio? I don't know, one of the big studios.
Yeah, I think it is AMC.
Well,
Even though we're thinking kind of like the channel, I think it is AMC. But
I can't remember. It's a big studio. They just optioned it 18 months ago, roughly. So they should be optioning it again or making it into a movie. Or maybe the option will expire and they'll do nothing with it. But in my opinion,
they're crazy not to.
They've been paying $50,000 for an option. They've paid last one was like $60,000. So you paid $50,000, $50,000, $50,000, $60,000. I know they paid the screenwriter a couple $100,000 to write the screenplay. So you've got roughly $500,000 into this. That doesn't include development or anything else.
They are crazy not to make that. Who wouldn't go see it? First off, everybody who's on it would go see it just to watch other people go do it to make themselves feel better. Then just the interest of it happening. I mean, I think it would blow up. With the fentanyl, I think it's just as bad. It's just that this was more out in the open because the doctors were giving it. Not everybody died. I don't know, but the fentanyl is nasty shit.
Well, yeah, the thing is people are dying like they're just rolling over dead. Like, boom, they'll take it and bam, they're just dead.
Like, I know the cheapest guys on the planet that would, they would go, they went to the weed store because it's the right way. And they're like, okay, well, I don't want to die, so I'm going to go to the weed store. And they're like, nah, fuck it, I'm going to go to the street. And now it's gotten so bad, they're like, nah, I'm just going to go to the weed store and pay the money, even for weed.
Right.
Now, why would a drug dealer put that into any drug when you're going to kill the customer? And I asked this to people, and they're like, they actually want it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
What the
if
fuck?
the problem is it's so potent and you don't have it properly distributed correctly, so you got some drug dealer who doesn't really know exactly how much he's putting. It's like, it's about this much. Well, the difference between it being enough to get them high and enough to kill them is so minute. It's such a fine line, and you end up killing your customers. Like, they're not trying to kill their customers. They just don't know how to get them up to that point. And so, it's something where it's like, because you understand that they use fentanyl, and you can get fentanyl. You can be prescribed fentanyl, right? So, but that's when a pharmaceutical company is making it and breaking it down and packaging it and pressing it. Not some guy mixing it up in a batch that he got from Mexico.
Taking a wild guess.
Right. Yeah, like, that's about right. Like, the difference between about right and not about right is a dead customer and you go into prison for 25 years for a homicide. And these guys always think, too, like they're not going to get hit for a homicide. I know a guy. Yeah. I think I've told you this story before. His name is Brandon, and he's out now. So I'm not going to say his last name. Brandon was working as a bouncer. By the way, when you think bouncer, you think kind of tough guy. Like, he's a big guy. He's like 6'4", but a gentle giant, but big, right? Like, I have no doubt he could sling you around, but he doesn't really he's not a violent person, really. So he was working as a bouncer at a club, and a girl came to him that I want to say she worked there as a waitress or something that they were friendly with. And she's like, look, do you know where I can get heroin? And he was like, she was like, look, I do it every once in a while. And he was like, I mean, I don't deal with that. He said, I know a guy that sells like oxys and stuff. Like, he probably could get it for you. Let me give you his number. Gives the number. She overdoses and dies. How'd you get his number? When they grabbed the drug dealer, how did you get the number? Oh, my buddy Brandon sent her to me. Brandon goes to trial. He gets 25 years.
Yeah.
For giving a number. He gave a number.
My friend Brian Parker before.
By the way, the drug dealer got significantly less.
Yeah. My friend Brian Parker, he was doing that analog thing before analogs became analogs. So he was making like the derivative of Xanax, whatever. So he would check the thing every day for the analogs to kick in on the FDA. Well, he's making all this money, moves to Times Square. Of course, he's got the money, gets the girl. One night decides to stay out a little bit too late and doesn't check that FDA website to see if they made it scheduled. That same day, boom, fucking hazmat teams there, everything, rate him. Well, he had sent a package to someone who was on heroin. and they mixed that with the derivative of Xanax. And although the guy was on heroin, is what really killed him. I mean, the mix is what put the icing on the cake. 27 years. And a guy that wouldn't like hurt a fly, but just sent the shit. It turned scheduled. Boom, done.
Honestly, that's really why they should just make all this legal.
That's what I say.
You know, they should make it legal to the point where it's like, if you're saying, hey, we want you to pay for a license, or we want you to, okay. But the problem is with some of like the marijuana, like in Florida, like I know guys that smoke marijuana that would love to get it from a dispensary, but they don't want to pay. They don't have medical insurance, so they don't want to. They don't or can't afford to pay the $200 and some odd to go see a doctor. That they then have to give an excuse on why they need it. He may then ask for them to have testing. So it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get to the license so that you can go get the dispensary. If you got rid of that,
and then it's limited,
right?
As well.
Right.
Yeah.
But let's face it, I mean, it may be limited, but you know, it's more than enough. Like it's typically enough. Because I know guys that have their licenses, buy it constantly, and just sell it. They just sell it to the other guys. Like they don't even do it. They're just like, but I still get it because I get it, and I just basically sell it to these guys because the bottom line is like I don't need it, but these guys can't afford to buy it. So I just get the edibles. I get this. I get the max out everything I can. I just sell it to them.
And it's 4 times as much as it is in the street.
Right, but I was going to say, I think that they should, if they just made it legal and cheap, it would save a lot of problems. And really, the model, to me, the model is this.
Portugal.
You decriminalize it. You make people able to just buy it. You let all the guys in prison out that are there for drugs. So you just eliminated 70% of the population. You cut the budget for that. You take half that budget plus half the money you get on taxes for buying drugs. And you open up drug rehabs that are free to the public, and not like a 20-day or 15. I mean, like a 90-day. So, and you run commercials. Hey, if you have a problem, you can go right now and check in to a 90-day program, and then you have a step program where that once they've done this step, they get to this level. They get them a job, get them back on, and you could more than pay for that by cutting the Bureau of Prison and the state prisons prison population and their budgets by probably 60 or 70%, and take half the money that you're taxing the marijuana and the licensing and stuff to open drug rehabs. And guess what? Anybody who genuinely wants to be a full-time drug addict, they can be one. You can work at Walmart, and when you get off work, you can be a drug addict. And if you have a problem and it spills into your job, well, we're going to fire you. But you know what? If you realize, hey, I need my job, so I need to be able to get this under control, or I need to get off it completely, I'm going to go into one of these drug rehabs. And it's free. It's free.
And I look at it like, you know, a lot of people, if you're not going to do it now, you're not going to do it. Like, you're not going to go do it. I'm not going to do it. But then you're going to have that phase initially where you have everybody doing it and getting all fucked up. But then after that phase, then you save all that money, and then you could put it toward the deficit, this other shit.
It's a 10-year plan. Well, I'm saying you take half the money and do that. The other half of the money can go toward the tax base.
Tax pay, and then the other half is the free rehab with real help.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's what Portugal did. Crime went down to nothing.
Look, and that's a 10-year, that's 10 years of pain and suffering.
Right.
Like, there's going to be some ups and downs, but in the end,
versus 100 years if we don't blow ourselves up or AI.
Right. So, which one do you want to do? You want to have 10 years of suffering, but overall it's better for society in the long run, and it doesn't cost anything. It's not going to cost people. You don't have to raise any taxes. You don't have to do anything. This is money that's already available. And if you let out all those people, imagine what those drug dealers that got 10 and 15 and 20-year sentences, imagine them now being able to contribute to the tax base. Because guess what? Oh, I'm going to go back and I'm going to sell drugs. No, you're not. Because anybody can buy it at half the price you were selling at it. You can't even get it anymore.
Maybe you should go get a job at the store.
Exactly.
Right?
Go get a job.
You know everything about it.
You need to go work on the line on Tesla till he replaces you with robots.
It kills the incentive of doing the same shit over and over.
Right. So, and there's no look. If you've done,
but the problem here is,
if you've done 10 years in prison, almost everybody in prison that gets out wants to do something. Everybody wants to get out and like they all have a dream. They're going to do this. They're going to change. They're going to get a regular job. They're going to this. They're going to that. The problem is the jobs don't pay enough for what they've been trained to do, which is nothing in prison. So you get out, you struggle, you get frustrated, you go back to what you know, which is selling drugs. But the truth is, if that wasn't an option anymore, now what do? I don't have a choice but to make this work.
But the only problem is that we have more prisons than any other country, and they're mostly private, and they make way too much money, and they're a part of the drugs coming in, so it's never going to happen.
The stat is we have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's incarcerated. 1% of our society is currently on some kind of supervision or incarcerated.
And it's all this.
It's actually, I think it's like 1.5.
It's all fucking money.
Yeah. It's outrageous.
Now, if you take the Republican hat off, the Democrat hat off, and you just think is like frog guy mastermind, right? What the fuck is going on? Like, they're letting the border open. Guys are cutting their dicks off. Women are cutting their tits off. Like, all this crazy weird shit. Through your lens, what do you see? Do you see that the ultimate purpose is like this Soros so that he can make this a like one world democracy like we were talking about earlier? Like, I know he wants to take Mexico and everybody, not China, but the surrounding, and make that all the U.S. like that. Do you think that is, or through your eyes, and then the Biden name, who we both know that is the most RICO racketeering shit that, I mean, you want to talk gangster. I mean, that's some gangster shit to take control of the DOJ. To your son's like strictly making deals with other countries, saying, hey, boss, come by. Hey, boss, just give a call, so that these guys know the boss is involved. Hey, this is Biden. Like, he's the boss of a crime family.
Right.
Done deal. Son gets $3 million to go hit some more crack. He's all his entire political career. This $400,000 at most a year. Guy's got like millions and millions of dollars worth of shit. So what is going on with all this absolute craziness, and in the schools and so forth? What is the ultimate? What is it?
I mean, I this is based on me knowing nothing.
Right. That's
like, I'm not capable. I love it when I saw this thing with De Niro did like CNN, and it was like,
I fucking hate it.
And I'm watching that, and I'm
in
thinking,
person, great actor, but he's a fuck.
Right, but I mean, I'm watching that whole thing where he's talking about Trump, and I'm thinking like, bro, you're an actor, like you're not qualified
you're in your
say,
bubble, bro.
Yeah, to say anything about anybody.
You don't even know what real human interaction is.
Right. Well, I was always it always kills me when these the liberals, the limousine liberals, right? Like, they've got millions of dollars, they pay almost no money in taxes, and they think they understand how the little man, runs his life, and they think they know what's better for them because you're a successful, movie actor who's making $30 million a year and is worth $300 million, and you live in your bubble, and you're going to try and tell a farmer.
And remember, you only hang around with people in your bubble.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That are all super, and you really, your decision is based on just making yourself feel better. Right. So, what, to me, I mean, this is so horrible because it's so probably not.
Probably what is the truth.
What people want to hear and
I
want to think, and honestly, it's so out of character for what people expect for me to say. But honestly, I just feel like it's almost like the devil, bro. Like, it's literally like they want to eliminate religion. And it's all death, by the way. It's all everything that they believe in is death. To me, you want to murder children in their mother's womb. You don't want people to get married. You want to change. You want to say that men are women and women are men. Okay, so there's no procreation, right? Like, you can't have babies anymore.
But
like,
remember, in the beginning, they divide. They start with the divide.
Right.
Well, and once they divide, somebody has to go find a cult to go be with.
Well, that's what the whole thing is, that they are absolutely set on dividing the country, and you want to take away. You want to act like you're inclusive. Like, they love the word inclusive, but their version of inclusive is to divide anybody that doesn't fit into their circle, And then the other thing that kills me about them is they're so left that they are bringing back they're bringing back I can't remember the name or with they're bringing back what is it when you separate, like blacks can use this water fountain, whites can use this one.
Segregation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry. I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
Like they're so left.
They are.
They're bringing back segregation. We want black only restaurants, black only housing, black only this, black. It's like, do you understand that they fought the civil rights? Like people died so that would not be a thing. And now you want to have, oh, this is going to be a black only campus, black only dorms, like. This is a black only space, or it's like you're a white person.
3 bathrooms. That's not racist.
Yeah.
Or that's not bringing back that, because now you're going in your bathroom that you can go to. Like,
and obviously you've heard this. Like, listen, like how terrifying is it that, listen, the moment that there's a world war, the first thing that those people are going to do is they're going to run to all the people that they mock and ask them to protect them.
Yep.
So all the hillbillies and rednecks and gun-toting people and all the tough guys, you're going to run to them and beg them to protect you. Because let's face it, like, you know, it's like the what is it, the Queers for Palestine?
Mm-hmm.
Like, go drop 100 of those guys off. They'll throw them off of buildings. They'll do public executions. Like, you're delusional. Palestine, they like in Gaza, like, are you joking? Like, they don't have gay people. Like, they'll kill you.
Well, when I read that, yeah, I did.
Did you hear about the wait? Did you hear about the city council where they elected an entire city council of all Muslims, and they were like, "Yay! Look how liberal we are! Yay! They're an all Muslim city council." The first order of business that the Muslims did was they banned the gay flag, gay pride flag. First thing they did. So it's like they're like, well, "What happened? What were you thinking was going to happen?" You're like, look how liberal we are. Right.
Look how open
you just
we are.
put in a bunch of Muslims that immediately, that culture is not inclusive. I promise you.
Gays in Palestine. Are you fucking
Oh, you haven't heard that?
I know I did. When I read it, I was like,
They've got huge
I
protests.
was like, what? Like, are you?
They've made bashing Jews cool.
I know.
Like, what a flip.
It's like Hitler shit.
Yeah, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago, if you said something negative, you were about a gay person, about a Jew, you were an anti-Semite. Now we can get to go around and talk about stringing them up and marching them into gas chambers. And all of these young 22-year-olds were like, yeah. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea how insane you are?
And then yesterday I see him, and yesterday, work was in here, and I go, "What the fuck is this? Is this with barbecue? Like, am I in the Twilight Zone? Like, this guy's eating human calves?" And he's like, "No, it's the CIA." He's like, "The CIA's over there trying."
What?
So in Haiti, okay.
Oh, Haiti's gone.
The president's got overthrown, and the guy running it now, his name's Barbecue. And he fucking eats.
That's
people.
right. He's a drug dealer, right? Like
right.
a drug.
And he's a cannibalism.
Kingpin.
He like you could see like them cooking up like a human leg. So I start drilling him about it, and he's like, "It's the CIA." I'm like, "Okay, so the CIA planted barbecue over there to eat humans," and he's like, "No, it's a way so that with the border open, feel bad for Haiti, they're gonna eat you. We got to take care of them, let them in." And I have Haitian friends, but there's a lot of bad Haitian people.
Yeah.
So his thing is that's their way of saying, hey, well, these guys, you have to let them in.
Listen.
But when you just look at it from the outside, you have different bathrooms. You can hang Jews again. And now you got a guy eating people on TV, and he's literally like burning legs, who's running Haiti. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on here, man?
You know what's funny is
and one more thing. Like, I was okay with it. Like, okay, everybody's getting kooky. Maybe when they get out, okay. But the whole eating people shit, that's when I was like, fuck. Something's really fucking weird right now.
I did a video the other day that Colby hasn't even.
You got to do one on this barbecue.
No, look, Colby hasn't even released this video. So there was a guy, like a super liberal guy, right? And he and I got into a discussion about like the border. And so as we're going back and forth, he's like, "Well, I think this, and I think this." So we're going back and forth. Because he got into trouble and he ended up getting arrested and went to jail. And he was talking about how horrible the conditions were and it's slave labor and this and that. And so we had this whole discussion, and so it ended up going. He was super liberal, and he was running for city council, and so ultimately it ended up leading to the border, and we started having that conversation. And as we're having that conversation, it's like we clearly don't see eye to eye. And I'm listening to him and I'm thinking, and so Colby hasn't released it pretty much because I'm pretty sure of what I said, because he's like, no, I'm just waiting for a time when like we can slip it in there, like it's a Tuesday between a bad video and another bad, like we have 3 bad videos and then we have a good one, like just to get it in there. It'll get 7,000 views or 12,000 views, and we'll just hope it never happens, catches up to you. So, and what happens as we're talking, and this is, so I'm a big fan of World War II documentaries. And what tons of people don't realize, like, there's a version that they push of World War II.
That's so interesting.
Right.
I got into it too.
So, Hitler said, I don't want the Jews. I don't want them here. And went to all of the Allied countries, went to England, went to America, and said, you can take them. We'll ship them to you. And America said, we don't want them.
And this is before all the crazy.
Oh, this is before. This is like in 35, 34, 35, 36. Like this is before he's invading anybody.
They don't mention that part.
No. So then, of course, Jews that are coming over there, their families are being deported or being placed into concentration camps. So we love to say, like, the soldiers showed up and realized there were concentration camps. Like, oh my God, this is what they've been doing. We didn't know. No. Plenty of Jews came over and said, they've got concentration camps. They're gassing us. They're killing us in droves. They're doing all of these things. It's horrible. And the U.S. was like, okay, well, thanks for telling us. We'll work on it at some point. Like, it wasn't in the papers. It wasn't a big deal. Nobody really cared because most of America were anti-Semites. So they didn't care. It wasn't until afterwards where it was like, yeah, we're the liberators. And can you believe how horrible? Like, it's very important for us to demonize Germany. Not that they didn't have it coming. But so the other thing is once we invaded Germany and once the Soviets, actually it was the Russians, but they were the Soviets. So the Soviets invade, and we let the Soviets take Berlin because they'd lost the most people in the war. Like the Russians took the brunt of the deaths or the casualties in the war. So let them take it. So they take it. Here's what people don't understand in Germany. And it wasn't just the Soviets. It was the Soviets. It was the Americans. We would go into these towns and they would set up bases and they would say, anybody that was a member of the military, come down with your paperwork. We'll determine what's going to happen. Don't make us chase you down. And guys would come down and they would line up and, hey, I was a member of the SS. I was a member of the God, what's the other one? Whatever. I was a member of this. I was a member of this. I was a member of the, I forget, the military, the Army, the Navy. I was in the Air Force. I was, and they would categorize them. I was a lieutenant. I was whatever. I was a colonel. I was, okay, that's fine. And they determined, like, you've been here for 2 years. You're a grunt. You're 17 years old. Go home. And then you guys are going to go to a gulag, or you're going to go to prison for 2 years. And then you 400 guys, we're going to march you off into a field and we're going to execute you. And so the idea that Americans didn't execute these guys brutally, that Americans didn't go in and rape women and go in and steal and cut off ears and do obscenely horrible things, it is ludicrous. Like they were not gentlemen. They were vicious fighters, as soldiers are. It's horrific. And I'm not saying that what they did was wrong. What I'm saying is the problem now with the media, the liberal media, is the things that need to be done or would have to be done to correct, to really fix certain situations nobody could do. Like right now, how do you fix the issue with Mexico? How do you fix it? The only way to fix it, which is never going to happen, is you invade Mexico, you go grab anybody that looks like they might be in a cartel, and you execute them, which is million. And everybody immediately is like, no, well, that's not how to do it. You can't. No, wait a minute. That's what happened in Germany. That's what happened in Italy. That's what happened. How do you think that Hitler is able to take over countries and everybody stepped in line? He didn't have big problems. Was there a bombing here, a little here? Yeah, there were little things. But for the most part, people showed up for their jobs. They went in the factory. They made the stuff that Hitler said to make, and there wasn't a major problem. Why? Because I'm executing people. And very quickly they step into line. And that's what and there's no media. Nobody's hearing about it. So you would have to go into Mexico. You could clean up Mexico. And what you don't do is what Rumsfeld did when we went into they went into Iraq. You don't fire everybody. You go into Mexico.
What the fuck was that?
You leave everybody in the government in charge. It's fine. And then you say, because if you fire everybody, suddenly, yeah, the Mexicans, the government's corrupt, but the garbage got taken out and the water was on and we did have electricity. You know, Rumsfeld goes and fires everybody, and next thing you know, 2 days later, the electric goes out, the water's off, and garbage is piling up on the streets. It's like, what are you, an idiot? So you keep everybody in place, and what you do is you slowly go in and start removing people. And you start putting in incentives. The Gestapo, by the way, I was trying to think of the Gestapo earlier. Gestapo. So you go in and you say, hey, there's an incentive for anybody who turns someone in who's involved in corruption. And you slowly start removing those people. And you even take those people out and you execute them publicly. Or you throw them into prison for 5 years into hard labor. So the next guy says, I'm not going into government for the purposes of corruption. I'm going in as a career or to do, because I want to help fix our society. And you slowly, over the course of 5 years, you remove those people and you put in legitimate people. You've executed probably a few million people over a few years of the cartel. You legalize drugs. There's no incentive for them to do anything. You have American companies come in and build factories and you get super cheap labor. And over the course of 10 years, people are going to say horrific things about the United States, but there's nobody big enough to stop us. And the people that are big enough to give us a problem won't give us a problem because that's like China or Russia, and they brutalize their own people, so they're going to say nothing. So over the next 10 years, it's a horrific, horrible, horrible thing that we've done, but you limit the media's ability to really capture that narrative or push that narrative, and in 10 years, people start shrugging it off. And in 20 years, it's not even in the history books anymore. And what happens is people in 20 years say, we invaded Mexico, we cleaned up their government, we helped retrain a lot of their people, we brought in factories, and now they're a part of the United States. So now you break it up into, I think there's like 8 states in Mexico right now, like they have their own state system. So you have 8 new states. And the problem is people, like I think this guy that I was talking to, who's like, well, that's colonization. I got no problem with colonization. I don't know why that's a bad word.
I think it's a great idea. You give the incentive. The only problem is that our government is involved in the drug trade.
Right. Well, I don't.
They're involved.
Okay.
In the drug
I don't think they'll still be involved because it'll all be legal.
True.
So it's irrelevant.
Make their money anyway.
Right. You think you're gonna make a ton of money if you go into Mexico?
Right, you're gonna get a kick.
We don't need the border. We don't have a border problem anymore because we've executed the bad guys that are coming in, and now everybody's factory workers, and they're after 10 years of education, they're all pushing for democracy. Well, they're democracy anyway. They're states. So now they're all states, and you only have to protect a border between Mexico and what is it, Guatemala or Panama or something. Like
that's a really good idea,
right?
Like when you think about it, that's actually
right,
really
but it's brutal,
logical idea.
But it's brutal.
Well,
it's brutal, and nobody wants to do. And they're upset, and it sickens you. And it's a horrible, sickening idea that is probably the only idea because
like you said, long term,
right?
It's the only way.
Right. 10 years from now, it's not a big deal.
Right.
20, who even remembers? We've rewritten the history books to such an extent that doesn't even matter. It's great.
I never even thought about that.
That's it.
That's the perfect idea. Now you don't have to deal with the wall shit and all this other shit. And
look how many more people we get. Listen, I'll tell you one thing, and I always love this.
And you can build over there.
I always love this comedian.
Great idea.
This kills me because it's absolutely true. Because anybody who's spent any time with Mexicans knows this.
And nobody's gonna give a fuck if some cartel guy that killed a bunch of kids gets a bullet in their head.
No, they're happy to get rid of him.
Do pay-per-view.
But this is funny because I forget the comedian's name where he's like, and this is true. Anybody's hired a Mexican, they're amazing workers.
Amazing.
So it's funny because
the best.
Nobody believes that the Egyptians built the pyramids, but they have pyramids in Mexico, and nobody questions that Mexicans built them. Right? I love that comedian.
Yeah,
he's like, nobody even questions.
Was that Shane Gillis?
God,
it might have been Shane Gillis.
I think he's the one who's always on Rogan.
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
It was one of the two. Shane Gillis or the heavy one that left mushrooms. It didn't work. Anyway.
No, I think it's the one with the guy with the mustache. He's tall, black hair.
Drinks like Bud Light like crazy.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Shane Gillis. Yeah, that was great though.
But look, like I don't have a problem with Mexicans coming in. I have a problem with them coming in with drugs and bad, and not just that. It's tons of Chinese coming in. It's tons of Muslims coming in that like they come in and they're talking about like coming in and destroying the country. Like I don't understand how you let people into the country and they immediately try and change the country that let them come in. Well, you got to change this. Well, why didn't you stay in your country and change all that? Oh, well, they'll kill us over there. So we give you the liberty to say what you want to say, and now you want to change our country to do what? The country you just fled from?
And they never talk about disease. Like it's drugs, it's murder, next terrorist. But what about all the diseases coming in too?
I think there's diseases everywhere, but I think you can vaccinate for diseases. Yeah. I don't know.
I guess if you could find them.
First of all, you don't have to worry about it if you just take over Mexico.
Yeah, I'm down with that idea.
Can you imagine how much money you would save? First of all, we give Mexico tons of money to fight a drug war that we're actively involved in. That it's such a circle. It's so ridiculous that I don't know. It's the same thing with like the China thing.
Well, like I've said this many times. When you saw the Putin thing, right? Did you watch that with Tucker?
I've watched bits and pieces.
It's a good one to watch because I think everything he said is true.
Putin?
Yeah, everything. I like him. I mean, I'm not saying he's not a horrible guy or whatever, but what he said, I think is true. He's like, one of the things was, Tucker asked him about China. He goes, why would America and China go to war? That America does their economy. America needs them for chips. He's like, you guys are crazy. And then Tucker was like, well, after Ukraine, aren't you going to go to Poland and this? And then he goes, what? He goes, I'm just taking part. Why would I want a problem with Poland? Why? Why would I want a problem with them? Like he's making all the sense. And then he brought up the guy that died in the prison. You know what I mean? Tucker did. So they had a journalist.
Oh, you mean in China?
No, in Russia. I'm talking about Russia and Putin. So.
Oh, you mean one of their journalists?
Right.
The Russian journalist.
Well, he was American, I believe, and then
he was Russian.
He was Russian.
He was Russian. He was against Putin.
Right.
So they kept, going after him.
So Tucker asked him, so you imprisoned this guy that's, going against you. And Putin goes, well, aren't you doing the same thing in your country? Right. And Tucker's like, everything the guy said, he's like, and then he's like, we've had 3 times I've tried to stop this war. We had a treaty, but the U.S. kept arming them. 3 times I tried to end this, he said. And you can look it up, and he did. But the U.S. kept saying, boom, and military-industrial complex, boom, boom. It's really interesting to watch because and he's like, you guys are so full of fucking propaganda. It's unbelievable. And he's just going one after another. And then when you take a side that is Vladimir Putin and just go by the words that he says and then research what he says, everything the guy said was right.
Yeah, but you can't believe him.
Yeah, first of all, he's killing people.
Well, I'm not saying he's not a fucking psychopath and everything else. I just liked what he said because it seemed honest.
Well, I think that the funny thing about the China thing, because it's funny, my wife will mention this. She'll be like, do you think China's going to invade Taiwan? Do you think that? I'm like, I think it would be detrimental to the Chinese if they invaded Taiwan. First of all, if they did invade, they'd better take it immediately. Because if the Taiwanese can hold it for 3 days and the U.S. comes in and backs them up, then they're going to kick the living shit out of China. The second thing is, like, China can't invade the United States. They don't have the crafts to invade the United States. The United States is one of the only countries that can basically pick up our military and move across the world. Most of these countries can barely move their militaries around their own country. Russia is running it by rail. Like, you saw what a hard time they have.
They're
like,
hiring other soldiers to go in. They're
not just that. They're not going to go into Poland. No. Poland would kick the shit out of Russia. Poland has brand new tanks. They're building brand new stuff. And Poland, listen, if you were to move anywhere, Poland's the place to live. It's extremely. Have you ever heard their president speak?
No, but I know that they're armed as fuck and don't give it. It's the wild, wild west out there, boy.
They're armed. They're ready. They're like, we have no terrorist attack. We do not allow in Muslim. Oh, listen, this guy, and they'll tell him, like, they'll say, like, don't you feel that's racist? He's like, I don't care. I don't care. He's like, my responsibility is to keep my people safe. And they're like, yeah, but you don't bring in, or you don't allow Muslims in. He's like, yeah, we do. He's like, legally, through the legal chain. He's like, well, what about refugees? I don't take refugees.
Is he running for U.S. anytime soon? Because I'm voting for him.
He's like, we've never had a terrorist attack.
I bet
we've never had. Like, he names off everything. You should see his response to, I want to say it was NATO or the UN. He gives them hell. I mean, it is hilarious.
Oh, yeah. The two CIA guys, they swear that the UN is involved in all this crazy shit, which is even more mind-blowing to me, but I believe it.
Well, what happens if when Trump comes in and says, we're pulling out of the UN? They're going to be like, what? Like, yeah, you're always bashing us. You're bashing us for this. You're bashing us for that. But the moment something goes wrong, it's like, please help us. Please help you.
Do you think he can get in? Can he
I
beat
think that he'd have to have a and he's pretty well insulated. They would, at this point, they've got to kill him. They literally have to kill. He's going to win. Well, and look.
What about the cheating though?
They're banking on bringing all the illegals in that are going to vote. Oh, we don't need a license to vote. What are you talking about? To drive, to fish, you love licensing people. Why can't you just show your driver's license in order to vote? Why can't I get a voter's license, license to vote? Like, doesn't have to be hard. We just have to make sure you're a citizen. That's not a big ask.
Anyone with just two IQ agrees with that.
Right. Except for Democrats.
Except for that.
Because they all, deep down, they know that's our only chance.
What do you think, Scott? Are you still a Democrat?
I'm still listed as a Democrat. I'm still registered as a Democrat.
Yeah.
But and my beliefs have changed. It's hard. I mean, yeah, you should have an identification to know that you're a citizen.
It's not. Look, I mean, I'm just saying. To me, you should be able to determine whether someone's allowed to vote. That's it.
It makes sense.
Right.
It makes sense.
I just need you to show me a birth certificate or a green card or a naturalized, a citizenship, and I'll give you an ID. We're not going to run it. We're not going to check to make sure that you're not a felon. We're not going to check any of these things. Well, if you're a felon because you're not allowed to vote in certain states, but we're not going to check any of that. We just want to make sure you're a citizen. That's it. That's all we're going to do.
But they're not.
Right.
So,
Why?
So do you think he can win? With the cheating, with the bullshit, can he win?
That Democrats,
if they don't kill him, can he win?
Democrats, blacks, and Hispanics, and women are going to vote for him in mass this time. And I think that I think that it was close last time, and all the things that they were scared about last time that he said will happen have happened. And whether you like Donald Trump or you despise him, I think that deep down you have to say to yourself, there is no one else better to run this country. And I may despise him. I may say, hey, he's misogynistic. I may think, although I've never seen one thing to show that he's a racist, not one thing.
Yeah.
You can say it over and over again.
Sure.
You guys, they can say it over and over and over again, but they can't show you one thing. So you can say he's a racist. You can say he's a misogynistic. And is he? probably, obviously. He's of that generation where women they stay in the home, they do this, they do that. And you may think that, but he's never passed one law or said one thing or done really anything. Does he have locker room talk? I grabbed that, reach down, I grab her by the pussy.
Like every other guy, yet alone a billionaire.
Listen, if you could hear the things that I've said and that people in general, I know people that are nice, liberal.
And we're poor.
They say all kinds of stuff.
And we're poor.
Right.
So imagine being a billionaire that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want.
I say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care.
Right. So, the truth is that I think that other than actually killing him, I don't know what could stop him. And they can keep having their little kangaroo courts and make up reasons to make him a felon or fine him or do this. But in the end, I think he's going to get in, and when he gets in, I think he's going to be their worst fucking nightmare.
Yeah. All those people that fucked him over and fucked with his kids.
He's going to go in. He's going to massively fire people in the FBI. He's then going to turn in. He's going to appoint somebody that's going to go after every single person. And I would hope that you would see a lot of people indicted and a lot of people getting jail sentences.
I think he is. I think he goes in there, he's cleaning house. Because he's only got 4 years left, so he doesn't have to worry about getting reelected.
Right.
And he just got fucked, drugged through hell his whole entire. I think he gets in, he puts that gas pedal down, and it might seem horrible, but it's for the good of the country.
I think he should. I think that his running mate should be what's his name?
Vivek. Yeah. So
how do you say it?
It's Vivek, like cake.
Oh, okay. Vivek.
Yeah, first time I had him in, I fucked it up. The second time, he's like, it's cake, like cake.
He would. Man.
That's what I thought too.
You don't think so?
No.
I think he's great.
Listen, I was dead. The second time when he was in here, I was like, this guy's got it. Like, right now is not his time. He doesn't have enough experience. He's a business guy. Now you're going to go into politics. Like, buddy, you don't know when you walk in that door. Like, you know the policies, you know what to do. But when you walk in there, you don't understand. Like, you need some time around somebody first. So I had thought Vivek, I did. But then Sam Arms, who works with DeSantis, he was talking, and he was like, I thought Vivek maybe before, but there's a lot of talk about him being assassinated. So now
being assassinated?
Trump.
Okay.
Like a lot more talk. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So now the VP pick is kind of with the voters. I didn't even think about that. I thought, how are they going to kill him? But if you look, the voters are talking about like him getting killed. So the talking with Trump and his people is, who could we pick that voters would be like, okay, if he does get killed, this person's going to fulfill the same, who's strong and going to fulfill the same strength that Trump would. And a lot are saying Huckabee.
Yeah, I think Vivek. I loved him.
Yeah, I loved him too.
I think he's great.
I just don't think he'll pick him.
No, he may not, but
I would. If I was him, I'd get that. He's hungry.
Listen, are you kidding me? I got the Brown vote. He's a brown guy. He's perfect. What are you talking about? It's either that or a woman. I
think it's going to be that. I think it's going to be Huckabee. I hope Vivek, though, man. I really like him. I talked to his publicist, Zach. I really like him. And he is sharp as fuck. You're not fucking with him. He's a good dude. I saw on one of your YouTubes, and I still don't understand it today, this Scientology. You had a guy in about science. What exactly is the Scientology, and why does a guy like Tom Cruise go to that? And these actors, why? What is it and why?
I think that when Tom Cruise and a lot of these guys first started it, it wasn't as well understood as it is now. L. Ron Hubbard obviously started it, and he was a lunatic, but he was basically a science fiction writer. I mean, he wrote pulp fiction type books, but he ended up writing some science fiction books, and then he basically developed first I think he wrote a series of books called Dianetics, and he really disliked psychologists, psychiatrists, like that industry, and so he wrote his own version of psychology in these books called Dianetics, which they're just based on nothing. and then he pushed it, and then after he wrote that, he then twisted it into like Scientology, and it was very secretive, because the secret, and you know what the secret is. Like
No.
the secret is
It was clear to me what it is.
it's all about and I forget the name. You're basically like a soul that's in a body that moves on, but you continue to learn. And so the more, and I like this part, like I like the idea that the more experiences you have, the more you learn, the smarter you get, the more elevated you become. And it's basically like a segmented tier type.
right.
Type.
I like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you become more and more enlightened, and they have these things called audits, which are odd, where you basically go in with like an auditor, and he does like a deep dive into your psyche and what you're scared of and what's holding you back. And so, there's some concepts that are interesting because they're trying to elevate you. So there's some parts of the religion that I'm like, that's interesting. And they want you to be successful. Obviously, they want you to be successful, make money, and give them money.
Like every other
religion,
right.
But they're a little bit more overt about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the truth is, like with Catholicism, or really Christianity in general, even Judaism, anything, like you could go every day if you wanted to the mosque and never donate a dime, and nobody's ever going to say nothing to you. Like they may say, hey, this is how it helps us and this and that, and you should donate. But if you never donated a dime, you get to come every single time. It's different in Scientology. Like we need to monitor that you are paying us in, and we need more and more and more.
And
so,
what part of it's that real weird part?
Right, that's the problem.
Weirdo-ish.
Right. So as you get higher and higher, ultimately, it's that you get to a point where when you pass away, your soul goes up to, and there are these different stations, like one is on Mars, one's on the moon, where their soul, like, and I may be botching a lot of this. So anybody like in the comments, this is pretty close. You go up there, and then it's a sorting station where you go on, and ultimately they're waiting for you to, or they're waiting for like Zunu or somebody like that's the alien race or alien whatever that created Earth, and Earth was created to kind of like be slaves or something. Like it's a whole insane weird thing. And initially, when it started, you had to raise to a certain level, like level 12 or 14 or whatever, before they would let you know ultimately where we came from and about Zanu or whatever his name is. Like, so now you've been in it years. You've been brainwashed for 20 years or 15 years, and then one day they tell Tom Cruise about Zanu.
This episode is sponsored by Aurora. Do you know what the fastest growing crime in America is? For years, this crime rate has been surging and affecting millions of Americans. I'm talking about identity theft, and there's a new victim every 14 seconds. Yet despite this, those who have had their identity stolen are often shocked when it happens. That's why I'm excited to partner with Aurora, who is sponsoring this video. Aurora is identity theft protection, fraud monitoring, a VPN, password management, and antivirus software all into one easy-to-use app. Their VPN allows you to stay anonymous online by keeping your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. Protect you and your family from America's fastest-growing crime. Try Aurora for free for 2 weeks and see if you or anyone in your family's personal information has been compromised. Start your free trial today. Go to aurora.com/MSCS. The link is in the description below.
And you're like
fucking hooked.
But it's too late. Like now he's like, as insane as that is, I'm all in. I can't back out now.
Yeah.
So I think, but what happened is once the internet, kind of spread the word about the insanity, and people started breaking away from them and started kind of, books came out and documentaries and everything else. They tried to put a real stranglehold on everybody, and it has a cult-like feel. Is it a cult? I think it's a little bit more of a cult than any religion. It's definitely more of a cult than most. And so part of the thing that bothers me about it is that, like, if you're someone who is a non-person, so you and I were both in Scientology, and then one day you start saying stuff, you start questioning things. And so I'm responsible to go and tell my the guy over me, because you have like people that are over you. So I go and I say, listen, man, Tommy's saying this. He's back saying, he's saying this. He's saying, I don't really believe this. Like, this is insane. Did you hear what happened with the president? I heard this. I heard that. You start saying those kinds of things, and they come and they'll talk to you a few times. And then at some point, they'll just say, you have to leave the church. You can't be in the church anymore. And here's the problem. You go, what? They're like, yeah, you're not a member of the church anymore. We don't want you to come in. You're going to be barred from the grounds. You're done.
Jesus.
Here's the problem. They then contact your wife, and they have her come in. And they say, you're barred. He's barred. So you're either barred, a part of the church, or you're barred too. And then they go to your parents, who are also a member of the church, and they say, listen, you can no longer have contact with him. He's my son. I understand. So you either pick him or us. If we find out you're still communicating with him, then we'll bar you too. You become a non-person.
That's where it gets crazy.
That's where it gets to be a cult-like.
Yeah.
So they start kicking people out. Well, the problem is, like, I had this one guy on. He and his wife was like, okay, that's not going to work for me. Like, this is my husband, and even if I divorced him, we have 2 kids together. Like, I can't. Like, it's funny. It was funny when you talk to him. His name is Aaron Smith Levy. He's like, here's what's funny about with my wife. Like, my wife wasn't like, I'm deeply in love. This is my husband. He's my soulmate. I'm going to be with him forever. She was like, I hear you. Like, I'm not against it completely, but what are we going to do about the kids? And they're like, no, the kids, like, I don't know what you can, obviously he'll be able to see his kids, but legally, but.
Oh, he'll be able to see his kids. Okay.
Legally, legally they can't stop it, but you can't have any more communication with him, and you can't this, and she's like, I'm going to have, because it's not going to work for me. And they're like, well, then you're going to have to leave the church. She's like, oh, I'll leave. They go to her parents.
They go to her parents?
Her parents, because they're members of the church too. They go to her parents.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, and his mother.
I never heard of him.
Because his father, you gotta have him on. So, and his father. So his father, his father, he doesn't even really know. He's not a member of the church, so it doesn't matter. But the mother, they go to the mother, and the mother's like, well, I won't talk to him anymore then. She never did. I mean, she never stopped talking to him. She continued to communicate with him because she's like, fuck them. But the 2 parents, like his wife's 2 parents, they were like, what about our grandchildren? They go, well, you can't see the grandchildren anymore either.
What the fuck?
And they said, okay.
Wow.
So listen to this. So
whoever's running that scam's got it good. Like
they owned a house across the street from one of the rental units.
Oh my God.
And he's like, so my kids would be outside playing and see their grandparents show up. And they're out there, and they'd be like, Grandma, Grandpa, and they would literally run into the unit.
Fuck.
He said, so finally it was so bad. And then, of course, when they've seen them and they see the kids, even though they don't talk to them, they have to go tell the hierarchy, look, we were there yesterday and we saw them. You did. And so they finally said, you're going to have to sell that rental property. And they went, well, we're going to sell it. So you're supposed to sell it to a Scientologist.
Oh
so what he did was he put up like a sign in his front yard saying, non-person, Scientologist non-person, like lives here, whatever. And then when people would go, he worked out of his house. Aaron works out of his, he would run out and go and see the potential people that are Scientologists. And he'd say, hey, by the way, I used to be a Scientologist. My wife did too. We're non-persons anymore. So I wanted to let you know you'll be living next to a non-person. And we're going to be doing this, or we're going to be doing that, and it's going to be hell on you. Wow. And so they're like, so the Scientologists that came to look at the house, they couldn't sell the house. Like, they finally had to sell it to somebody that wasn't a Scientologist. I mean, Aaron has been a thorn in their side. He started a YouTube channel. He does lives. He's hilarious. And, you know, it's funny because his wife's, like, they got divorced, but his wife's parents, one day she got a message from like a brother who was a Scientologist or somebody, and who said, listen, Dad's in the hospital. He's only got a couple days. Come see him. She hadn't seen him in like 6 years. Had no idea. He'd been fighting cancer for 2 years. Never reached out. She went to the hospital, walks in, and the father starts crying. I love you. I'm so sorry. You have to. And she's like, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's okay. Literally, they were like, you can't see your daughter. You have to just die.
Wow.
So there are the extreme things that Scientology has done that are horrific. and I definitely feel it's cultish.
The beginning sounded kind of okay.
I'm okay with some of it.
Yeah. Until you get to that whole fucking, you get to meet whoever Zoe is or whatever,
Right.
and then it gets all wacky from there.
Right, but I also, I hate to, my problem is that, so I'm going to worship this entity in the sky, and he's going to send his son to die for my sins on the cross, and then every week I'm going to eat a representation of his flesh and his blood, and he's going to cleanse my soul so I can go to a magical cloud in the sky. Like, Christianity is just insane. We're just used to it.
Right. Don't forget the grape juice is his blood.
The grape juice. I had some grape juice last Sunday.
Stories of 7 guys.
Last Sunday I had some grape. You peel it
Definitely
off.
were on mushrooms right
I'm
now.
Catholic.
Yeah.
So we don't have the grape juice.
Yeah.
We
just get the stick.
We just get the little wafer, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to the Christian church that I go to now with my wife, you actually get a little grape juice thing. You peel it off, and it's a little gray shot,
Ooh.
and there's a little wafer in there too.
Wow.
Pretty cool.
Well, they stepped it up a little bit.
Yeah. It comes out of a factory somewhere, so obviously.
I bet that donation bin got a little bit bigger.
That Jesus must be running.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's probably got a bunch of Mexicans in there.
But he doesn't have an ego, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, but
maybe they were just doing a lot of mushrooms and saw some shit, you know.
I mean, I think it's all got a touch of insanity, but I definitely think that Scientology, from everything I've heard, is super cultish. Like, they get you in there. But here's the other thing. Once that kind of psychology of the cult personality spread through the internet, they've gone from, I forget how many, 300,000-400,000.
Oh yeah, it went down big time.
Oh, it's down to like 120,000. And I don't know what the exact numbers, but it's like a third of the size that it was.
You know what? You bring up a great point, because even Christians and Catholic people that are heavy, and it says, don't swear, don't go to jail, whatever, because that religion, so-called religion, or God, so-called God, says no. I know people that literally have disowned their kids because they haven't gone the path of God.
Right.
Okay, so, like you said, we're so used to Christianity and all these other things, but, we're saying Scientology is crazy. You can't see, because off the top of your head, you're like, what the fuck? But then when you take a bigger picture at it, you have millions and billions of people in these other religions that a lot will not talk to their own kids or their wife over whatever their belief is.
But I can't imagine a priest telling someone you have to disown this person. And that's over the line, And I don't know why that happened. I don't know if that was a part of L. Ron Hubbard's initial design. That probably is just a family saying, like, no, I'm not going to abide by this. What I know is, like, I go to church every Sunday, which is so. And here's what bothers me. I'm sorry, I forgot his name.
Scott.
Scott, here's what bothers me.
Okay.
Anybody who has spent any time with me at all.
Yeah.
Okay. When I say I go to church every Sunday, immediately is like, no, you don't. You don't believe in God. Nobody's ever heard me say I don't believe in God. In my entire 54 years, I've never said I don't believe in God.
I've never heard you say it.
People will tell me, you don't believe in God. Why? You have a perception of me that is inaccurate. So, but that I'm putting off that vibe. Like, that's on me, right? Like, that's not on other people, but I must be putting off the atheist vibe. Like, I must be that guy or something. But the truth is, like, I go to church and here's what's even, and I'm going to say worse, which is probably, it's not worse. Probably in the last 6 months, I've been the one who says more than my wife. Well, we're going to church tomorrow, right? Well, we don't schedule anything because we're going to church. And she's like, well, we can skip. And it's like, well, no, let's just, I'll move this. Let's just do it at 4:00 and we can go to church and then we can still go eat and we can still, and she's like, okay, like, I'm more pushing it than she does. Because when I go and I leave, I feel good about myself.
I think it's a good thing.
Isn't that weird?
Whether I believe that I don't believe that you float up to heaven and float down to hell, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't believe, listen, if you were to sit down and say, this is how it happened, and this is what the Bible said, and this is what it happened, exactly how it happened, I would say, probably not. Honestly, even if some guy has got into a room and made it up, it's a pretty good story.
It's a good, and it's good for society.
I was gonna say, and it's a good way to live your life.
It is.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
And some stuff, some stuff is obviously outdated. There's some stuff, the gay stuff or the anything like that. Like, it's outdated. I get it. There's some stuff, and if you really read into a lot of the text, like, no, all these, we're not the center of the universe, and we're like, but they didn't know that then, and and it's it's inspired by God, written by man. They're going to make some mistakes. So, but overall, I feel pretty good about most of it. And I feel like it is a good way. It's the Western.
I mean, I personally think they should get rid of all of it, because all of it to me is war. It just creates fucking war to me.
I don't think so. I think that it's
or a reason for war.
Well, I think that part of a religion is what holds us together as a society.
Well, that's one side. One side is that it holds us together. And when I realized that, because when I went down this rabbit hole, I'm like, somebody ate a fucking apple and it's just boom. But then
that's kind of silly. But
hey, if you believe it, I respect it. Great story. But what I started to notice that I hadn't before, mothers or fathers or somebody who lost their brother that I know for sure would have taken their own life. They turn to whatever religion and they're okay, 10 years later, 15 years later, whoever they lost, whatever happened, they started going to church, and that was their security that they lost to keep moving on in life. Where I am dead set, I know multiple people that would have killed themselves for sure.
Right.
And I have noticed that people that do go every week, or whatever, they go regularly, they're genuinely nicer people if they're really going because
there's some douchebags.
Yeah,
there's some douchebags, no doubt.
If they're not going just because the law says you have to go or your girl's making you go.
There are some people that go simply to make themselves feel superior than everybody else.
Because I went to church.
Yeah,
that's not what it's about.
Yeah, but then you went for the wrong reasons.
Right.
I always loved the Johnny Cash in the movie. Who knows if he ever said it or not. In the movie when he's trying to sell the record studio on letting him go to Folsom prison, and he's trying to get them to put the money up to do it, to let me go to Folsom prison and do a concert. And they're like nobody wants to hear you cheering up a bunch of inmates. They're like, your base are good Christians. And he goes, they don't want to hear you playing and cheering up a bunch of inmates. And he goes, well, then they shouldn't call themselves Christians. I love that.
Didn't he go and do it then?
Yeah, that's that was he put up his own money, and that was the biggest album that year that they would. He's like, I'm going to do it, and if you like it, you guys can buy it. If not, don't worry about it. And he put up his own money and went, and it was the biggest album that year.
He was cool as fuck. You like Johnny Cash?
Yeah, he was good. I mean,
I like
he called him Sue.
Yeah. Boy named Sue.
Sue.
It's a great song. I was going to say, what what's funny is the Garden of Eden story. Have you know the Garden of Eden story?
A little bit.
So the Garden of Eden is, Adam was in the Garden of Eden, and there's lots of plants, and there's
mushrooms.
There's plants to eat from. He's got everything he needs, but after a little bit he gets lonely, and he goes to God. He says, God, listen, I appreciate you making me and creating me and putting me here. He's like, but I'm kind of lonely. And God says, you know what I'm going to do? He said, I am going to split you down the middle, and I am going to mold your perfect equal mentally and physically in every single way. She will be the female to your male, and she will be your equal. And Adam went, what can I get for a rib? Come on, that's funny,
right? But if you take out if you just look at the philosophy of it and just say, okay, man, woman,
I feel like you don't get it.
I guess I don't get it because I laugh.
He's saying you're gonna cut. He's saying you're gonna cut. You're gonna take half of me.
Okay.
And make an equal. with half.
And you know what that guy did?
What can you...
Bunch of DMT.
Jesus Christ. What they're saying is, what can you do with... He's like, I don't need all that. What can you do with just a rib? That's why women aren't equal.
Right.
That's the joke. Jesus. That would have made a great TikTok.
I know. I fucked it up. Let me go take a piss. All right, back from piss break. Before we pull up your YouTube, a lot that I saw on there, which I was actually surprised you had on, was alien people.
Because
now, you know me and the alien shit. Where do you stand with this alien thing? Oh, I got them all.
okay, that's
I have
solid.
Bob Lazar sign shit, all kind. My fucking UFO light went off.
I don't, so I have a guy. I only had a guy on. There's a guy named Chris Marrero, and I was locked up with him, right? He actually had been in a phone bank, right, or phone room, whatever, where they were selling people, convincing people like, hey, we can get you back all of your, the name of the scam, he'll tell you it's not a scam, but he basically doesn't think like you have to pay income tax. You know, they're like, they never ratified that, you know, they can't make you pay income tax. Okay, well, the prisons are filled with guys that are going to, right, they can't do that, but they do it. So you saying legally they can't do it? Yeah, but they have the prisons and the guards and the FBI agents and the marshals and the judges. So they are making you do it, and they make you do all your prison sentence, and you can scream for 5 years about how you don't have to pay income taxes and this is illegal, but you're going to do all your time. And so he's a little kooky, and I say that, but I love Chris. He's endearing. He's one of those guys that you're like, this guy's a nut, but I really like him. And so he's highly entertaining. So you could go into Chris's cell when we were locked up. So, but he was doing he was working in like a phone room where they were contacting people and saying, look, we can file this form and we can get back like all of your, and he named all these things that somehow or another they could get back from the IRS. And then they would fill out the forms and they would get you back a check for like $150,000 and you owed them 10%. So they write you a check for $15,000. And there was a ton of money. It was millions. It was 10 million, 15. I forget exactly how much it was. And he ended up, the whole team got indicted because obviously you can't get that money back. So eventually the IRS comes in and they arrest him and all these guys, or they arrest him and all these guys, and then they go to trial. And he ends up getting like 15 years. So while he's incarcerated, fighting his case so that he can become a sovereign citizen and not be subject to the laws of the United States. It was just insanity. And while he's doing this, you know, we're talking to him, of course. And so we would go in, and Bosiak and I, John Bosiak would go in. John Bosiak was a cellie. We would go in there and sit on the bed and say, "Hey, Chris," and he'd go, "Yeah, what's up?" We go, "Man, I just saw a bunch of planes flying over, and they leave that trail." Like he'd go, "Oh, you mean the chemtrail? You realize that they're poisoning us, right?" What that is, and then he goes into this whole conspiracy about how the government of the world, the one world government, is trying to bring the population down to 500 million people, which is all that Earth can sustain. Like he would go on for the next 45 minutes, and then you'd say, "You know, that's weird. Like, I used to have a buddy that said that like aliens were actually, they're doing it with the aliens." And then he'd go on 20 minutes about the alien conspiracy. And so the amount of entertainment that Chris gave me during prison was immense. And so I had him on once to go over his case. And, you know, so he's, and he was super funny the whole time. Like he doesn't know he's funny. He's just funny because he's so passionate about it. And yet this is a guy that has never rented like an apartment. He's always lived in like vans or been homeless or lived in someone's spare room, or lived in, my favorite was when he worked at a job for like 8 months and he was living in the storage room in the back of the building, and they couldn't figure out. They're like, "Boy, Chris is here every morning before everybody else. He's the last one to leave." "Well, yeah, I live in the storage room." They don't know it. One day they figured it out, and they were like, "Oh, you can't stay here. What are you doing? Like, what's happening?" So he was super, super funny. And so after I had him on about his story, I said, you want to do another podcast? He's like, oh, about what? And I went, let's talk about aliens. Because I know he's so knows all of the conspiracy theories. And what I love about him is he can simultaneously be a good Christian and tell you about how it dovetails into aliens. And the aliens and the religion are, there's no contradiction there at all. And there's 160 different types of aliens, and he'll start naming them. And he'll tell you that, like, it's so overwhelmingly insane. And what's so funny about it is one of the podcasts I did with him, I've only done like 3 about aliens. Like, one of them got like 200,000 views. Like, it was insane how many people, and people were like, this guy's crazy, but I love him. And one of the things he had told me was, oh God, what were we talking? As I said, look, this was just after they released those videos of the Navy pilots.
The Tic Tac.
The Tic Tac.
Tic Tac or whatever, yeah.
And I said, Chris, I said, I mocked you a lot during prison about the aliens. And he's like, yeah, you did. I go, I owe you an apology. He said, oh, now you're a believer. Now you're a believer. Like, we had a whole thing. And then he started telling me what they are. He goes, those aren't even aliens. You understand that those are really crafts that are made by Lockheed Martin. That's alien technology. And he had a whole thing on what they were. But you just have to give him a point. And I love the interviews where you can kick back and all I have to do for two and a half hours is right, uh-huh, and then what happened? Like, that's a great interview for me. If I can talk 5% of the time, right? So, I thought they were together. They were together. And then they go, and you go, oh, wow. And every once in a while I'll throw in, like, what are your parents thinking?
See, that's where Joe Rogan's got it made, right? Because everybody's so excited to go on there. He can do 5 a week because so how are you, Matt? And then he just plays off for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's perfect. Like, I love that, especially if the guys have prison stories, because then they'll mention, or they're doing some kind of fraud and they'll mention something.
Easy to relate to.
It's easy for me to go, it's funny because in my case one time, and then I get to tell a 5-minute story and then jump back to them, and then so it's an easy conversation. And Chris is great because I can mock him, and he's not so serious about it. He knows it sounds crazy, which is great because I can mock him and he's not upset about it. So I remember one time he told me a story, and I don't know why because honestly, he's had a couple videos that did okay. He had the one video I told you got like a lot, like 150, 200,000, but most of them get 50 or 75,000, which is still good. I'm happy with that. But a lot of my people or my viewers, like subscribers, like they yell at me, bro, what are you doing? Alien shit. I got a true crime channel. 99% of it's true crime. Every once in a while, I'll throw one of these guys in there. And I did get contacted by a couple other alien people after that. So I did 1 or 2 with them. I got one guy that's got like 200 or 300,000 subscribers. I just did another one with him. It's already views. Just did another one with him. I think it's already got like 60 or 75,000. It only came out like a week ago. Like, for my channel, those are big numbers for my channel. So, but one time Chris was telling me about this story. I'll tell you this real quick just to let you know how these conversations go. Mm-hmm. He said, so, well, here's what's happening in Yosemite Park or whatever. So he's got a big thing with the aliens picking people up in the park and doing stuff with them. And so he said, there was a hiker, and he knows the name, and he's great with the names. So he was like, the guy's name was Brad Johnson, whatever. So Brad, he's hiking, and he disappears. I'm like, well, what happened to him? And he's like, well, we don't know. What we know is he disappeared, and then when his group of buddies went looking for him, they found his trail, and then suddenly it was just stopped. And then he said, 200 miles, a week later, and 200 miles away, they found him in Oregon. And I'm like, right? He's like, he was at a truck, wandering around a truck stop. He could not remember where he was or where he had been. He had a brand new set of clothes, he said, and a fresh haircut. And I went, really? And he goes, yeah. And I said, he said, the aliens, they just dropped him off.
Oh.
And I went, well, I said, I don't know that means aliens. Did he say aliens? He's like, no, he doesn't remember. And I went, I feel like maybe, I said, that's pretty odd. I said, I think maybe he was by the street and like a trucker drove by and saw him and like got out
Hitchhike
and hit him in the head and then put him in the truck and then kept him for like a week and then dropped him off like 200 miles away. Like that's possible. Like put him in some of his own clothes and played with him and did whatever did things to him. I said, then dropped him off. He goes, what about the haircut? I said, well, maybe the trucker really wanted to be like a hairdresser, but his dad wanted him to be a trucker. So, he went ahead and he was a truck driver, but deep down he wants to be like a cut hair.
Oh, you're fucking with this guy.
I go, so every once in a while he knocks somebody in the head.
I almost feel bad for him.
I go, knocks him in the head, drags him in the truck, does stuff to him, gives him a good haircut, and drops him off. And so I mean, Chris is like, no, that's not, like, he's serious. He's like, no, that's not what happened. I don't think. I said, I don't know. And there's some weirdos out there. So these are the conversations I'm laughing and laughing. And he starts laughing, and I'm like, I think that's possible. I said, is my understanding that I said I don't know of any other alien abductions where they give the guy a good haircut.
Yeah,
like,
I haven't heard that one. I've heard them all. I went down the rabbit hole. Yeah, and I've heard them all.
So we have these conversations, and then I cut them up and turn them into TikToks. And, and I mock him mercilessly. And I think they're super funny, even though the guys that watch my channel, and I've only put out like 5 or 6 of these things out of like 400 videos. So the subscribers, they can deal with it. And some of these guys also are like, bro, I love these. These guys hilarious. Like the fact that you're constantly fucking with them is so funny. But yeah.
Where do you sit with it though, personally?
I mean, I think that obviously, I believe there's life in the universe, right? Like, mathematically, it's impossible for there not to be. Are they small animals on another planet, or is it bacteria? Is it like just mathematically, it's not possible that on other worlds there aren't? Is that life intelligent life? Like, there's enough planets that are in the habitable zone, what they call that zone around the sun or around stars, like the Goldilocks zone, that there's going to be life. There's water, it's abundant. If there's water and heat, there's life. So, I just don't know that they're interested in us enough to interact. So that bothers me. I'm not sure about that part of it. I haven't seen 100% proof. There's a lot of odd things that happen. Like the Tic Tac thing really freaks me out. But to the extent that there's 160 aliens living and that are among us, I don't believe that. That they're working with the federal government to run the world, I don't believe that. That they're using us as slaves, they don't need slaves. Listen, 15 years from now, robots are going to be running a ton of stuff. 30 years from now, we're not even going to really need to have jobs. So I don't believe that. I don't believe that an alien species is so intelligent that they can get themselves across the universe that by the time they get here, they need anything from us. And if they want our planet. They wanted our planet, they would fly down and sprinkle pixie dust, and we'd all be wiped out by a virus in 2 weeks. And then they'd come in with a big broom and sweep us up. Like, they don't need us.
What I always say is, it's 2024, right? You can't keep anything a secret. There is not one clear photo. There's all these crashes that if you had a piece, imagine how much money you could make if you could prove it. But nobody has a piece. They've seen, they've heard, they've read, they've been told, they this, they that. I think that all the shit that you see is ours. Now, when you have an astrophysicist that's dealing with a college and you push them and you angle them, right to when you get to that part, they start to talk about it. But remember, they want that funding. So then they kind of pull back. But then if you get an astrophysicist that isn't involved with a college, they're like, look, you mean it? And I'm with them. What are they going to do? Bend fucking time, go light years, and then they just happen to what? Fucking crash here?
Yeah.
So you could bend time, come all the way here, and then you're going to crash on Earth.
Right. But you hit turbulence?
Yeah. I mean,
yeah. So, but I do believe that, obviously, mathematically, there's no way there's not life. But let's face it, Like if there is a planet and it's got a bunch of listen, we're the only real intelligent life here. So is there a planet somewhere that's got dinosaurs on it? Yeah, of course there is. Like I believe that. Is there one that's made up of bacteria or algae or whatever? Yeah. Is there a planet out there where there's fish and stuff? Yeah, but they didn't come. They're not going to come here. Like, are we going to find that someday? Sure. You also have to understand that like you're not traveling faster than the speed of light, so that's not possible. So if you're traveling, if you're able to do that by creating some type of a wormhole
or bending time,
right? If you could do that, okay, which I don't even mathematically is that possible, but if you can do the amount of power that you have to do that, you just don't need us. If anything, they're coming here to watch us like as the same way we would be interested in going into the wild and watching apes. Like that's.
So one guy made one good point, but said that there's no way that they crashed. Maybe came over for a sign. Was because, like they always say they're over the nuclear facilities and shit like that.
Yeah.
Well, the point is that that's the only part where they could see it possible, because if they set off a nuclear bomb into the space, this test, it could mess up their bending of time and all this other shit.
So
personally, I think if they're coming, you would never know it. If they're standing here, you would never know it. They're not going to let you see it. They're so advanced. Second, they're probably not sending whatever they are. They're sending the robotic of what they are. And third, for all we know, they could be breathing. Oil could be their oxygen.
Yeah.
Right? You adapt to whatever it is.
There was a scientist one time, I forget, that he was talking about, I forget who it was too. I can never remember.
I'm sold on Donald Hoffman.
I don't know what that is, but
that's a long story.
the guy was talking and he was like, can you imagine that if it's like a crystal based life form, or it's some kind of life form that basically they're what is it where you absorb the sun? It's something synthesis. I forget what they call it.
It's like solar synthesis,
so
crystallization.
Right. So that if you're like, you derive your energy by absorbing sunlight. So if that's how they're alive, that's their food source, and they came here and saw us, like they're making farms of animals, then they're chopping them up and they're eating them. Like they would be disgusted by us. Like, oh my God, like they don't want to have a conversation with us. They don't want. Every form of life on a different planet is going to be so vastly different. It's not going to be humanoid in the way that we know it.
No way.
Gravity is so vastly different on every single planet. So are they going to be even close to our size? Like probably not.
No, just how everything adapts to it. Like every animal adapts to its environment. Like a penguin somehow can walk 37 million miles in freezing 7.3, to get fish, to then walk all the way back while she sits there with the egg. They adapt to that freezing cold. So if you're in a place that, you're a microorganism, but the oxygen is carbon, or it's fucking just say oil, like the rain is oil. Well, that's their water, and they drink it because it would adapt. Because when it is a microorganism or an atom, when it starts to develop, it would adapt, right? I mean,
so yeah, I was gonna say I watched a video probably a year ago where they were talking about basically if we colonized Mars, what would Martians, essentially people are born on Mars, they're Martians, even though the humans, what would we look like in like 500 generations or not, it was like 4 or 5 generations. We'd have very little muscle mass. We'd be much taller, much thinner. Our eyes would be yellow. It starts talking about all the things that would develop that naturally happen now for us in those environments. And they were like, look, by the time, and then they showed like diagrams of what people would look like, and man, they look like aliens. But they're human.
Right.
You're human. You're a Martian.
Sure.
You're human. And it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's another one of Chris's things where he was like, well, some people say that it's us going back in time, and that it's actually humans that have colonized other planets, and they're humans, but they just don't look like we do anymore. That's another one.
I could buy into that. I still don't think they've been here, but
no, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Look, I don't know that they could even explain to us have a. Did you ever see the movie? Oh gosh, is it The Arrival? Where there are these crafts that land all over the planet, and they're trying to communicate with them.
Yeah, and they can't.
Right. Eventually they do. Eventually they come up with like through obviously
almost
through,
like a translator.
right, like like a computer, like a kind of like a program.
AI.
They eventually figure it out. But their minds are so vastly different. Like they experience time in a different way than we do. And it is a super interesting movie, but you realize how difficult it would be in order to communicate with another life form. Like it's not like, hey, cup,
Yeah.
me, human. Like it's
Thanks
not
for coming by.
It's weeks and weeks and weeks with the aid of a computer. I mean, it's so vastly different. And it's funny too, because the only reason they come back in time, or they come to our planet, is they're like, why are you reaching out to us? And even the words that they're figuring out, like, okay, we believe that this word means this. Well, that word, like they give them a word, right? And they're like, well, wait a minute. That word can mean, and then they've got like 40 things it can mean. And they're like, I mean, one of them is like, machine. One of them is weapon. One of them is, from the military is like, weapon? Does that say weapon? Does it like, calm down? Like, trust me, if they wanted to kill us off, we'd be done. But in that movie, what they ultimately find out when they're like, why are you here? They're like, we need, what do you need from us? They're like, we're here to make contact because, it's like 4,000 years from now, we're going to need humanity's help. And they're like, 4,000 years from now? How do you know what's going to happen in 4,000 years? And they're like, well, that's from where we are. So we've come back to establish, a relationship with you because in 4,000 years, we're going to need humanity. So it's like, you can't even conceptualize what they're trying to say. You can barely communicate. And the idea of their version of time is so vastly different than ours. It's a great movie. It's not, they make it a little exciting here and there, but I think it's great. But yeah, once again,
that sounds like something I could grab onto a little bit. I
Yeah.
could grab onto that a little bit.
yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, I don't know what my wife and I were talking one day, and we were talking about like something like and it was actually back to God. It was God based, and it was, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think this? And I was like, the problem is with when I think about God and I think about the Bible and religions is that if you could communicate with a cat, could you describe to a cat or a dog, you describe that they're on a planet in a solar system, they're held to the planet by gravity, they're surrounded, we're going around a star, there's multiple planets, that planet's in a universe that's in a galaxy that's in a, you start going into the whole thing. Do you think that dog could comprehend it? And
Yeah.
she was like, nah, they wouldn't know what you were talking about. Like, you couldn't, right. You think, and I think I can comprehend God. We can't comprehend it. The people that wrote the Bible or wrote these, they're doing the best they can. Are they wrong? Of course they're wrong. You can't conceive of God and time and gravity and creation and the Big Bang. And so to say, oh no, God made this and maybe God made the Big Bang. Well, no, that's not what it says. You can't go by the Bible. Like, you can't even fathom what's, if there is a God. So you can't, so for me to sit here and say, oh no, this is what happened. Like, you don't know.
Nobody knows.
Right. So is it like a religious God, or is it an entity, or is it something that I can't even fathom? Like, that's probably what it is. Like,
I think it's
you can't fathom this thing.
I'll make it quick. Hoffman, he's the only one who got me. What he said was, and he makes like Grand Theft Auto with the gamer. He went to a TED Talk. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the McCoo guy, he's something else, McCoo. All of them went up, right? And him and Donald Hoffman and this mathematician, I can't say his name, he was on Lex, top mathematician in the world. They said this, that God is one, and there is no space and time. This doesn't exist. and pretend that everybody has meta glasses on, nobody would know. Because if you're born with them on, if everybody here had meta glasses on and this is what you see, nobody would know. But the one, call it God, can experience love, hate, pain, blah, blah, blah. So at the TED Talk, all these astrophysicists, scientists, he said, explain to me taste, right? Explain to me taste. And nobody could explain taste. And what he said was your conscience is what presents this to your vision, your conscience. So your taste is through conscience, not the brain. No brain, because there is no space and time. Space and time is created by man, right? So you're not really here. It was crazy. Scott's not really here. There is no space and time. It's just perception and your conscience. And God is the one. And when you have that instinct, like, oh, I shouldn't go this way, just like in a video game. You want to go over there to get that coin, but you might die. The more correct decisions that you make in the reality that you're living in now, in the grid, whatever it may be, the more you make correct, then eventually you become God of the universe with God. Whereas God has no ego, right? Because why would God have an ego? And that's what the math had proved. So the math had proved that this is, I guess you could call it a simulation in a way, because the one God can't experience all these things. So he's experiencing them through us. And when you do the right thing on the grid, then eventually you are a God of the universe. And then that ghost that you think is there, or your grandma that's talking to you, she's really talking to you. She's really there outside saying, hey, Matt, things like that. So, and then he went into a lot of coincidences that had happened of, like, say, somebody's brother, somebody had a dream that their brother was going to die, and the next day they die.
Right.
Things like that. So he made the most sense to me of it all. So with all that
doesn't make sense at all to me, but whatever.
Well,
but that's the whole thing. I can't, like,
yeah, it's
whenever these scientists start talking, like, you ever hear somebody super smart trying to explain something to you and you just kind of go numb, where it's like, I can't, like, you're so much smarter than me, I can't even conceive of what you're trying to tell me, and you're breaking it down like you're talking to a child.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's how I feel when you think about God and aliens, and it's like, look, I got a vague understanding of what I think it might mean, but even if you explained it to me, you can't. I'm never going to grasp that.
Yeah, right.
So you're wasting your time.
And even me, and I'm like, I was obsessed with it. And even me, like, I understand what he's saying, but to grasp it is like, whew. Throw up his YouTube, because you've got some great videos. What's your favorite? What's one that still sticks out to you to right now? Like a really.
I would say Joseph Vitale.
I was just going to ask you about him too.
Joseph Vitale, I did one with him. I think it's got like 100,000. Like, it really concerned me because.
Stop right there, Scott. Before you get to Vitale, what happened with DJ Envy?
Yeah, look at this guy's got. Look at the alien one. He's got 70,000. It was 7 days ago. It's got 70,000.
People love the alien shit.
I'm telling you, DJ Envy.
What'd he do?
I mean, he was helping this guy named Cesar Pina, who was a fraudster, got out of prison, started flipping properties and raising money to flip properties, and really it's just a big Ponzi scheme. So he's running a Ponzi scheme, and DJ Envy is on the radio talking about how, yeah, I'm working with them, we're making tons of money. And so DJ Envy's helping get investors to invest with Cesar Pina, and Cesar Pina was arrested for whatever it was, a $40 million Ponzi scheme, and we're just waiting for DJ Envy to be arrested.
So he's getting arrested.
I can't imagine how he's not going. Like the guy, I was watching videos, they've got text messages of him telling people, don't invest with him.
What the fuck?
Like, what do you mean you invested 100,000? I told you not to invest with him. Bro, he's no good. Like, you're telling your audience to invest with him, but you're telling your friends and family, don't invest with him. So you know it's a Ponzi scheme. You know. And by the way, he's like, he comes out and he says, I didn't know anything about this. But months and months earlier, people were reaching out to him. They were like, bro, I gave this guy money, and now he's not returning my calls. So, people are going to reach out to you. Whenever I do a video, people will reach out to me on my social media platforms, text me, all kinds, email me, bro, that guy that you talked to, the guy's a piece of garbage. He stole this much from me. So if I do one video and within a week, I've got people telling me that this guy's lying, you're DJ Envy. You've been doing this for a year and a half, pumping this guy, and he's been stealing from people. You think you didn't know, you hadn't been contacted about people that have been ripped off? People are going to the media, they're doing videos about it. He knew.
I don't understand these guys. I mean,
and
he has a
millions.
He has a fucking maid.
Right. You're worth millions. What are you doing?
Scott. That one, when I saw that, and I hadn't heard of it.
Oh,
they kept it quiet.
Here's what I think happened. Because by the way, like the guy, whatever, Caesar has already been arrested, right? Like he's in prison. Like he's not getting out. Here's what. Well, I don't know if he got on. I don't think he got out on bond. But anyway, he got locked up. So I mean, he's been in prison for fraud. They're probably not giving him bond. Maybe they did. I don't know. But the point is that what I think happened, if he's smart, and his father, by the way, DJ Envy's father, I believe, is a police officer, and he's got smart enough to go to a criminal lawyer. He probably went in first and said, "Listen, here, if his criminal lawyer is smart and really looking out for him, he went in first and said, look, I'll help you get an indictment against him. I know a bunch of stuff. I realized halfway through that he was doing this, and I, tried to cover himself, because they'll let you do a little sleazy shit where they're like, I don't quite believe you, but I need you, so I'm going to let you. We're not going to prosecute you, but we think you knew, but we're going to let you slide if you can help us get him indicted, and you promise to testify against him. Yes, I do. Because you'd rather be sitting in the witness box than in the defense table.
Right.
So it's great. I've got an inside guy. I know the scoop. I'm going to help you. And I think by that definition, he may
skate.
He may skate. We'll only know that, though, if Cesar Pena goes to trial. Because then DJ's got to get on the stand. Now you got a problem.
And he's DJ Envy. He gets on the stand, boy.
Well, people are going to know that he cooperated. But then again, I have a lot of guys in my comment section were like, yeah, but his dad's a police officer. And the truth is, he doesn't hold himself out to be like a street guy. So he's not worried about street cred.
Right.
So he's probably doesn't care about that. About people saying, oh, you snitched on him. Go fuck yourself. Like, I'm not a street guy.
What a fucking idiot, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a dumb fucking idiot.
Yeah, it's just stupidity.
So what about Vitali? I was going to ask you about him.
Vitali, it's funny because I've had a documentary crew or production company that was interested in his stuff, and that fell through. And now I've got another documentary company that's interested in his stuff, and but basically, yeah, I mean, he had run. It was a legitimate business, and they were raising money. The problem was that if he's raising, let's say, $10 million, he's pocketing $2 million.
Right.
But he's telling the people investing that he's making a 3% commission, but really he's making like a 20% commission. And as a result of that, that's fraud. So in the papers, they called it like a Ponzi scheme, but it wasn't a Ponzi scheme. He's just overcharging, which is fraud. It's still fraud, but he's got it's a more complicated than that. Like there's several frauds that go on, and then his business partner actually was planning on killing him. Yeah, his business partner killed his own wife or his own girlfriend and called Vitali to come over. He was going to kill, we believe, he had already killed his fiance, and he was going to kill Vitali and set it up to look like he had killed the girl, his fiance. Like Vitali had killed the fiance and he killed him. But Vitali, as he's driving over there, calls his girl, and the guy's like, hey, just come around back. He's like, come around back. Well, he's like, well, and he wants to, I forget the girl's name, whatever her name, let's say Kim. He's like, well, I want to see Kim. He's like, no, she's asleep. Just come around back. I don't want you to come in the front. I don't want to wake her up. He's like, first of all, where she would be sleeping, like, leave the door unlocked. I'll just walk in. Like, she'd be in the bedroom. Like, you could ring the doorbell. They're not going to hear it. Like, he's like, it just didn't. He's like, I don't know, bro. He's like, that sounds, suspect. And he's like, bro, just come over. Just come around the back, bro. I'll be waiting for you outside. Like, I'm out by the dock. It's not a big deal. Like, he panicked. He was panicky. So he ends up calling his girlfriend and tells his girlfriend, he goes, do you think this guy would kill me? Because the guy had already, another buddy of his, he'd already told the other buddy, like, I'm going to kill him. And the other buddy called him and said, look, he's serious. He's like, he's just saying that. He's not going to do anything. He's like, no, he's serious. So Vitaly calls his girlfriend. His girlfriend's like, are you fucking crazy? This guy he's a nut. He's on drugs. He's telling people he's going to kill you. And now he's saying, come around the back. Don't do it. So he turns around and he calls the guy. The guy's name's Roy. And he goes, Roy, you know what? Just meet me at the ale house down the street. He's like, the guy flips the fuck out. Bro, I would never hurt you. He goes, out of the blue, I would never hurt you. He goes, who said anything about hurting me? Like, I didn't say that. Why would you jump to?
I think that's the best one you wrote.
Well, that one's good. So that guy gets killed. I'm sorry. That guy ends up getting arrested. The next day he gets arrested because he had already killed his girlfriend or fiance, whatever her name. But then what's funny is, so months later, one of Vitaly's loan officer, or not loan officer, I forget what he called him, but basically one of the guys that raises money, right? The guy, a broker or an agent, one of his agents is raising money. He's seeing this chick. He's engaged, actually, but he's actually seeing this other chick. And he's also and this chick is hanging out with like this low life guy. But he's also he's on drugs. So they're over at his house. That guy kills Vitaly's, and it's like he said, he was my best friend. Like, he worked for me, he was my best friend. He kills his best friend, robs him of like $30,000 in cash, takes some other stupid shit like some headphones, like stupid it's kind of stuff drug addicts would take, just stupid. Grabs some stupid shit and leaves his buddy there. Now, he killed him by giving him a hot shot. So, he overdoses him because he's a drug addict, and he ends up giving him a hot shot, kills him, and then robs him. Well, they believe, the police kind of thought like it's not quite right, but we don't have any evidence other than that. And he was a drug addict. Like, even if we thought somebody did something, how are we going to prove that? He's got multiple drugs in his system. He's doing drugs.
A defense is going to fight that all day.
Right. Like, we're never going to get anywhere. And we don't really have that much on the whole situation. Later, it comes out that the girl that was there that he was also seeing, she ends up basically calling the detectives and saying, look, this guy killed him. And they're like, well, you should have told us that a few years ago. Like, there's nothing we can do at this point. And so the guy that did kill him, the day after that murder, he goes and he robs a bank. Then he robs another bank. Then he robs a cashier, like at a Publix or something. Like, he goes, pulls a knife on the guy and gets like the money. He actually stabbed the cashier because the cashier was like, are you fucking serious, bro? And he stabs him and he grabs the money and runs. Then he robs another bank, gets into a chase. They eventually catch him. Like, he breaks his leg, and while he's running from the cops, and the cops end up grabbing him. He goes to prison. His name is Rico. Well, while Rico is in the U.S. Marshals holdover, right, Vitaly gets arrested for, raising the money and charging too much money, right? Like the guy Roy that got arrested for killing, he tells the police he's running a fucking scam. He's whatever, tells them about the scam. They come in, they indict Vitaly. Vitaly gets arrested in the airport trying to leave the country. He's at it's so funny when he tells that story. He's sitting in the airport waiting for his girlfriend was Peruvian. So he's waiting to go to Peru. I want to say it's Peru. And he's sitting there, and he said, I'm with my girlfriend. I'm looking at these two guys. And he said, and they're both on the phone. He goes, and I look at my girlfriend and I go, am I crazy, or is that guy on the phone talking to that guy? And she goes, you're nuts. He goes, no, listen. I'm going to get up and walk across, get some water, and come back. Watch them and see if they follow me. She goes, okay. So he gets up, he goes, he said, I go get some water, I come back. And I sit down, and he goes, and she's on her phone. And I go, did they watch me? She goes, who? He goes, God damn it. And he said, yeah. So he's sitting there. And so then he said, they call for the flight. zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. He's like, they get to our zone, we stand up, I walk over to stand in line. He said, and I turn around and I look at these two guys and they both say something and hang up the phone. He said, I watch both of them walk right up to me and they say, Joseph Vitale? And he's like, yeah. And they look at her and they go, you can get on the plane. He's not. So
you know that feeling. You know that feeling
horrible.
like that.
So
20 minutes when you're just waiting and you're like, it's here.
They bring him in the U.S. Marshals holdover. While he's in the U.S. Marshals holdover, so his name, is Joseph Vitale. Well, he meets this other guy named, he's like Joseph whatever. It's Rico. He meets him there, and he's like, so we kind of hang out. Like, I'm like, oh, where are you from? Oh, yeah. He's like, yeah, I used to go here all the time. He's like, oh, yeah, I used to go there all the time. He's like, oh, you know V? Which is the girl. He's like, I knew this chick. Their name's V. He's like, oh my God, that's my girl, bro. I hang out with all the time. We're great. Blah. And they start talking. He's like, oh yeah. And he's like, and I realized like something's not right. So during the course of them being kind of friends over the next week or two, he said at some point, and it's a little bit longer than this, but the point is that at some point, he says, yeah, my girl V. He said, if next time you see her, mention the name like Ventura or something, whatever the name of, it's a subdivision. Mention the name Ventura. He goes, the shit we did there, he said, would get us fucking, he goes, would get us the needle. And so Vitale's like, oh, okay. He goes, so a week or two goes by and he's like, oh, what did you do on the street? He's like, oh, I was a broker. A broker? He's like, man, I knew a broker. Yeah, he's like, yeah, the fucking guy owed a bunch of money to my girl. He's like, he said, yeah, I had to give him a fucking hot shot, bro. He's like I had to, he said, because, he had money. So, boom. And we got the money and this and that. So he confesses that he murdered his best friend, just doesn't know he's confessing to it.
Yeah. What the fuck, these people, man?
So he tells him that when I'm writing the story in prison, he tells me that. And I went,
huh?
I go, bro, did you ever tell the police? He's like, I told my lawyer. My lawyer said, you don't want to mention that to the police, bro. Or he said, if you mention that, then they're gonna think that you're hanging out with murderers and drug addicts and stuff. He's like, you don't want to bring that up. Like, we've got a plea. Let's just take the plea. I don't want to make you look bad.
That lawyer got a boat after that case.
What an idiot.
Yeah, he got some frequent flyer miles.
I mean, and this is the thing. Like, Vitale wasn't thinking to say something to get his sentence cut. He was thinking, this guy murdered my best friend and he's getting away. Like, I should tell them he just, like, this guy's a murderer. He murdered my friend. Because Vitale's not a criminal,
Yeah.
He's not a gangster. He's just, he's a stockbroker. So,
yeah, when I read that, I don't know what you call it before it becomes a book. When you were writing
synopsis.
The synopsis. One, I thought that was the best one other than your book that you wrote.
Right.
And two, you could tell that there's
he
nothing
got
about
railed.
him that's criminal.
No.
He's a Lamborghini, good-looking kid.
He may be greedy.
Greedy, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he may want more than the 3%, which is allowed by law.
So he might cross the line, but
Right.
there's criminal, and cross the gray area.
Yeah.
Right. He's like a gray area guy.
Right. And, like, nobody lost money.
Right.
Like, it's not like... Anyway, the point is that what ends up happening with
Great
that...
fucking story.
What ends up happening with that is I convince him, let's write a letter to the fucking detective. So we write a letter to the detective. Next thing you know, a week later, the detective, they bring him into SIS, and the detective gets him on the phone and says, bro, tell me about Rico, or tell me about the guy's name is Joseph something. I forget his last name. But he's like, oh, okay, yeah. And he tells him exactly what happened. And they reopened the investigation, but they never end up charging Rico.
They never did.
No, because they're like, first of all, we got toxicology says he died from this. The body has been disposed of. Like, there's nothing we can do at this point. And he's like, yeah, but you've got V saying it. You've got me saying it. He's like, yeah, it's not enough. And keep in mind, the guy, Rico, for robbing the banks, had just gotten like 15 years.
Yeah.
So it's like...
But they're like,
Yeah, they're like, he's got 15 years. And honestly, any defense attorney would tear that whole situation apart. So I get it. I would love it if that guy got, what he has coming to him. But he didn't, and that's fine. He got away with it, and so he'll.
Last two things. I can't remember the guy. He had gotten a boatload of years, and you were trying to get him out. You were very close with him, the Italian kid.
Pierre Rossini.
Yes, and he had a hell of a story. What's with him?
He's at his mom's right now. I got
Is he?
from the house, halfway house.
Oh, good for him.
Told me to tell you hi.
Oh, good. Tell him I said hello, and I'm happy for him. Good for him. Really nice guy. Really good guy.
Yeah, he's actually. I'm supposed to do a podcast with him in like a week.
Really?
He's brilliant. Yeah.
Tell him to give me a text. He was so cool. He's such a cool dude.
Yeah, he is. He's brilliant. Mom's super sweet. Kept in touch with his mom the whole time. He's super smart.
Pull up top 3. Matt's book.
Mahler. Yeah,
Mahler.
That's the Mahler.
Oh,
The third
motherfucker.
The third. So I have out of like the 6 or 7 books I have, like mine sells the most, then Frank Amadeo, and then it's Pete's book.
Yeah, Frank's the whole thing.
And by the way, one of the stories that this production company that I'm working with, his name's Pierre. I call. As a matter of fact, I think even I'm one of the few people that call him Pete. But what's funny about that is the production company that I met with in Los Angeles. One of the stories is Pete's that they're interested in. They love the Mahler angle? Yeah, pretty cool.
Now when is this going to become a movie? I thought by now we'd be talking movie talk. This is like the best.
I don't know. I'm working on it.
Like, have you tried or just been busy?
I just went to Los Angeles.
I mean, this is a killer.
I mean, I just went to.
Don't forget about me when this is, Hollywood.
We'll see. Like I was telling you, I think before the podcast, like the guy that I signed with, Patrick, is it's the first person. He's one of the first people that I've spoken with that it has actually convinced me that it's actually going to happen. Like, you know what I'm saying? That something will happen. Like, I don't know what, but he's working on 2 separate avenues. And listen, I went out there. I met with him, met with his whole team. I went to his studio. I went to, he's like, we had a meeting with Mark Wahlberg's company. We had a meeting with the guy that did, he's a producer. His name is Lawrence Bender, and he did all of the
This would be who would you want to be you? If you could pick, who would you want to be?
It's funny, they gave me a list of like 10 people that I went through. The problem is like half of them were probably, these are guys that are now in their 40s, and it's like, but I was 29 in my early 30s, and some of these names are just like, I'm looking at the name and I'm like there's no fucking way Mark Wahlberg's playing me. It's like not that it's bad. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio.
CGI.
Well, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio is playing. It's like could you pick a better if you had to pick like a dream of who you think you are? Like you're like he's perfect.
Leonardo would be perfect.
Well, my only problem with because they were like, well, you don't see yourself like this. And I'm like, I see myself as Brad Pitt, but even Brad Pitt's in his 50s. I'm like, you need somebody who's in their 30s. And they're like, yeah, I know, but you're not going to get somebody who's 30 years old. He's like, and the people in their 30s are not established enough to pull the budget that we want for this.
I think take Wahlberg.
No, but look, it's not really up to me. They keep acting like it's like I have a say, and I keep saying I don't have a say.
Right. Yeah, I've been through this, motherfucker. Right. Remember that stack from Universal with War Dogs?
Yeah, I'm like,
shit.
You guys will pick whoever you want to pick. They're like, well, we want you to be happy with it. I'm like,
sure you do.
I'm like, I'll be happy with if you're telling me that you can get Matt Damon to play me, and even though he's in his late 40s, early 50s, to me, like, what kind of an idiot would I be to say, no, I won't accept that. He's not a young enough. Like, what am I, an idiot? Of course I'd be thrilled to have Matt Damon play me. I don't care if he's the right age or not. You'll figure it out.
It's going to happen.
Look, they had Leonardo DiCaprio, the guy's 6 foot tall, playing Belfort, who's like 5'6".
If they would pick him, if he would do it, good night.
Yeah, but they were saying that they're like, he's, look, let's face it, Catch Me If You Can is the all-time greatest con man movie. He's not going to play another one.
Wahlberg would be good, though.
Wahlberg would be great. My only thing, like I was saying, is I was so young, but they were like, look, they're like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like that one aspect of your person of the storyline, we'll have to get rid of it. Like if that's the case, I hear you, bro.
Let's go.
Do it. Like
Let's
if it,
go, right?
like how amazing would it be to say that there was a series based on your life or a movie or whatever.
Fuck.
So we'll see. Look, if it happens, it happens.
It'll happen.
I don't know that it's going to happen, and I don't even allow myself to daydream about
Right.
it.
You just got to let it go. And when it happens,
Right.
it happens. Now with War Dogs, I always say, when I, right, Scott, I always bring it up. You wrote that script.
No, we've had this conversation 1,000.
I still say you fucking wrote it. Okay, what'd you do?
I wrote his memoir,
Okay, same thing.
and he alleged, Deveroli alleged that his memoir was used to write the movie War Dogs. I've never alleged that. That's what he said. Do I believe that?
Okay.
I don't know.
I allege that because
Yeah.
I read the memoir.
He said like
And the memoir looks in fucking like ink with a pen. I read the whole thing. Remember I read that one?
right.
That was the one I read the whole thing in Vitality.
There's stuff that's switched around
But,
in that. But yes, there's definitely
That's the
aspects of
movie.
it that are the same, but that's also the story.
and that's the story in the movie that came out.
Well, in the end,
I don't
I ended
know
up
if you have
suing.
a gag.
In the end, I ended up
Fucking
suing.
stacked to here, right? With you.
I sued Deveroli. I sued Warner Brothers and dropped it, and then I sued Deveroli, and then Deveroli and I ended up settling.
How high was that stack from?
Oh, of the
Well, it was
legal
Universal, right? That you were suing?
no, it was Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it was back and forth, back and forth.
Fucking
back.
stack.
They were trying to come into the prison in order to depose me. They were like, it was a nightmare. And you know who fought that whole thing was between Pete and Frank Amadeo.
Frank Amadeo. Yeah.
And you know who else? The judge. The judge. We were. Well, it's not that he did anything, but those two were constantly talking to the judge. What's his name? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know
The
what you're talking about.
Cash for Kids.
Yeah, Cash for Kids. Yeah, Rob is the one who put him away. Or Rob had filmed that whole thing. He was the guy who did it. Yeah. The one guy got out.
But yeah, the judge, he like they would go to him and listen, here's what's going on. And he would go, okay, what's happening? Well, you know, I think that, and they would kind of bounce ideas off of him. He hated Deveroli too, that judge. But the judge is out. He got out.
Yeah, I know. I knew there was two of them, and I think the judge got out on the COVID thing, and the other guy still. The one that they were putting all these kids away for smoking a cigarette, and they're making a ton of money off the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rob was all over that when he was a movie guy. And last thing, Elon. What do you think of Elon?
What is my opinion?
Well, because it could be true crime in a way.
Well, so mine is different than yours because I heard your take on Elon.
Well, after he knocked down like fucking 70,000 followers, I'm on, I don't know. But all I know is that Linda Bitch is crazy, who he made CEO. And after he made Linda Bitch crazy, CEO, suddenly Neuralink got approved, which he could not get approved before vaccine to no end and sensor to no end became CEO.
I think, and this is funny because I watched Joe Rogan one time when he was talking about like billionaires, and he was like, "There's two kinds of billionaires I like." He's like, one is the insane, I'm gonna buy a $200 million yacht billionaire, which is Jeff Bezos, and the billionaire that sleeps on people's couches. Doesn't know, can't even drive himself around. He can't find anything. He can barely dress himself, but he's brilliant. And he's decided, well, you know what I'm going to do with my money? What? I'm going to go to Mars and colonize it. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, that's the most insane thing ever. But then so is building a car company based on electric cars and saying, but there's no electrical grid to power those cars. Oh, we'll build that throughout the United States and do it.
Tunnels.
And tunnels and do it and everything. Like,
and a rocket that goes all the way up.
Right.
NASA can't do it. Comes all the way down.
And lands
you can
itself.
reuse it.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I saw this the
So
other
I
day.
love the guy.
That's what I'm saying. Is like he's insane in the way that I think I would be insane. Like, I'm not going to buy a $200 million yacht. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to drive a Ferrari and a Lamborghini. I'm not going to do that. To me, it's like, you've got all the money in the world. What do you want to do? It's like, I think I could do this. Like, and I think even if I can't do it, I could hire the people to help me do it. I think we could figure this out. Like what do I want to do? I've hit the pinnacle of success. What do I want to do the rest of my life? Let's fucking colonize. Let's pick something hard. Let's colonize Mars. I love that. I think he's brilliant. I think he's amazing and smart. And like, if you said, hey, who is your hero? Like, he's probably the one person I can look at and say, yeah, that's like my hero. Like,
See,
that's amazing.
Even if he is the arm.
He and Ronald Reagan.
Yeah. Even if Elon is the arm that nobody's looking at and he is part of whatever, still he's my hero too. I mean, a guy, and then because of all this crazy shit, his daughter won't talk to him because she turned. This guy goes and sells 9 fucking houses to try to get his relationship back with her. So it didn't work. That's why he sold all those houses.
I don't know all that. Look, and here's the thing. I'm not one of those people also that says, I'm not one of those people that says, hey, I like all of these things about you, but you said this one thing that I disagree with, and I don't ever want to talk to you again, and you're a piece of garbage. Like, you know what? I'm good with these 9 things I agree with, and this one thing that's happening I disagree with, but I'm okay with you. I cannot agree with every single thing and every aspect of someone's personality. It's not possible.
Look, if he's going to destroy me, I want no one else better than him to destroy me. I mean, he's doing cool.
I don't understand the destroy part.
Okay, because
what's happening?
Fucking Dr. Malone
I don't know who Dr. Malone is.
Dr. Malone created the mRNA.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, the basis for the vaccine.
Okay.
He created the vaccine. Okay.
For what? COVID?
Yeah.
Okay.
But he didn't. But he had gotten the American proctals, and then once he saw the China proctals, he was like, "Oh fuck!" And then it almost killed him. And then that's when he started coming out and saying, "Look, the proctals that I got from America, that I use the mRNA that I patented, is not for humans, and it will kill you. The China proctals are correct. Do not use this. I was using the American proctals from Pfizer. This will kill you. It almost killed me. I had to take Pepsid AC." So because he got the wrong information from America, let's just say to make it simple, he started going down this rabbit hole. And he's been in 3 or 4 times, and every time he's like, Elon is the threat. He's the arm that no one's looking at, right? And I'm like, you're fucking crazy to him. This guy,
right.
Me. I'm this idiot over here. And I'm like, Malone, come on. You're my buddy, but you're crazy. You're absolutely crazy. Then he appoints that Linda lady, right? And Malone's like, see? And then I message him on Twitter, X, whatever. And I say, you know what, Malone? I'm a moron. And I get censored. And then 3 days later, if the Neuralink is approved, and now he's putting it in brains. So you could say he is part of the agenda. They already did it. The guy can move a mouse.
No, I know about the Neuralink. But what does that have to do with?
The point is that, okay, he buys Twitter to make it free.
Right.
But then he appoints this Linda, I can never say her last name right, as CEO. Well, this Linda is the most censored type of lady that there is. She is pro-vaccine to no end. She doesn't think there should be any type of free speech. But if he did it as a deal move, like, all right, fuck it, put her in there so I can get my Neuralink approved, and there was nothing more to it than that, all right. But if you go by Malone and some others, that's a sign that maybe he is. I don't know. But like I said, if he's going to end up killing me somehow, I'd like it to be him.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I don't know about all that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Fine. I don't even use Twitter.
How long do you think AI takes us out?
Huh?
They say 2045, we're fucked. Next 5 years, there'll be...
I love that conversation with Elon Musk where he's talking about the guy from Google.
Larry Page.
Yeah, where the guy says, he's like, I'm concerned about this. He's like, oh, you're a speciesist. You're a species. And he's like, yeah, I am. I'm pro-human over AI. He's like, what do you mean? No, of course. But the other guy was basically saying, like, if AI takes us out, well, that's just the next step in evolution. He's like, are you out of your fucking mind? Like,
well, Page and them, like they call it artificial general intelligence. Page and Soros call it artificial God intelligence. So when that quantum computer comes out, like when it's fully cold enough or whatever, look out.
So, Bozak has been playing with, literally, there's an app that came out where he'll just tell it, Darth Vader talking about Nikes, 1 minute, and it'll produce a 1 minute short where it's Darth Vader. And all these images of Darth Vader holding Nike shoes, wearing Nike shoes, saying,
Perfect.
have you, hello humans,
I am your
this is
father."
Darth Vader, you know,
Yeah.
and just talks all about it, and just, I mean, it is the most amazing, and you'll watch it, and literally that's how fast that goes. Darth Vader talking about replica Nike shoes, 1 minute video, you know, and he sits there and you wait, about 15 seconds later, boom, it pops up and goes, and I mean it is with narration, I mean with the captions, with the different slides and the different transitions. It generates the photos, it generates everything, generates all of the text, everything, and it's amazing. You're like, he'll sit there and do 20 or 30 of them in an hour.
Did you see those robots playing soccer?
No.
Type in Google, robots playing soccer. So they took these 2 robots, and all they did was teach one how to kick a ball.
Right.
And next thing you know, these robots are going at it left and right, teaching themselves how to kick the ball. Then they put nets. They're playing a full-fledged game with no instruction. So they're already like teaching themselves how to do everything. So imagine how like advanced if that's what they're showing us, you know what I mean?
What's really happening behind closed doors?
Because whatever they show you is only what they want to show you, just like the news. They just put on whatever they can. I keep trying to get to the bottom with some of these people. Look at this shit.
But here's the thing. Humans did not program these robots to play. They learned the game by themselves.
It's coming up with these interesting different strategies, different ways to walk, different ways to block.
And they're doing it. They're scoring over and over again.
This robot here.
Raya Hadsel, Vice President of Research and Robotics, showed us how engineers used motion capture technology to teach the AI program how to move like a human. But on the soccer pitch, the robots were told only that the object was to score. The self-learning program spent about 2 weeks testing different moves. It discarded those that didn't work, built on those that did, and created all-stars. There's another goal. Oh. And with practice, they get better. Hadsel told us that independent from the robots, the AI program plays thousands of games from which it learns and invents its own tactics.
Is that crazy or what?
Here. I think that red player is going to grab it, but instead it just stops it.
They're gonna be
back,
like
passes it
domestic
back,
servants
and
for a
then goes
little
for the
bit,
goal.
and then they're gonna start helping us make cars, and they're gonna drive trucks, and they'll slowly, over the course of 10 years, they'll slowly start taking jobs, and there'll be a whole.
And then they're gonna realize these fucking humans are just fucking up this place.
It's not gonna happen. We're not fucking up this place.
No.
It's fine.
I just go into my bed and hide.
It's fine.
Go to Matt's Instagram.
Well, I mean, he passed it now. But yeah, that's him on the left. Fake W-2 tax scam.
Okay.
Barry started a Ponzi scheme when he was 19. He brought his company public as a Ponzi scheme. It was a carpet cleaning business that he bought public. I think it was worth $200 or $300 million. He was worth like $100 million. At 22, got involved with the mob. Eventually, lost everything. He was indicted and ended up going to prison for 25 years but under the old law. So he only did like 7. And then he got out and became a pastor and started a huge church and started stealing from the church. And then he also started busting. He would start exposing companies that had problems in it, right? The companies that had gone public, that were public companies. He would go in and find out, like, the CEO lied about his resume. He never had a fucking master's degree. He was never in charge of this company.
He was already hip to it.
He was already hip to all the scams. And then he would go in, he would short the stock, work with a reporter. They would publish an article, the stock would drop, he would sell it, and he'd make a bunch of money, right? So he's doing this over, but he can't do it. He's a felon. He can't do it. So he's buying it in other people's names. So now you're stock manipulation, stock. So he's getting in trouble he gets in trouble doing that, goes back to prison for like 10 or 12 years. And he exposed a bunch of companies, companies that had, where the SEC came in and shut them down and made them sell their stock, like all kinds of stuff. So he's working with the SEC, but he's also doing this on the side. And sometimes he's like, I'm going to give these to the SEC and work with this reporter. And when all that comes out, I'm shorting the stock. So he's making tons of money doing that.
Yeah.
Goes to prison, gets out, and he just got out a few years ago. And he flew down to my studio and came in and did like a was it 2 or 3 hour podcast. And he also, the great thing about his story was all I had to do the whole time was go, right, and then what happened? Right, and then what happened?
I watched the first 30 minutes and it was good. That's why I wanted to bring this up. I couldn't remember his name.
Super smart, very interesting guy. I was going to say, the guy below him, so if you go down.
Scroll down?
Right.
Yeah.
So that guy, that bald guy, well, on the left, the young bald guy in the blue suit, that's David Packows from the movie War Dogs.
Oh.
That's Ephraim Deveroli's business partner.
That's where that looks familiar.
By the way, his video came out about 2 weeks ago on my channel. It's got I think it's 400,000 views right now. For my channel, that's huge.
Yeah.
This guy here is a lawyer. This lawyer, the older bald guy, his name is Mike Walsh. He came up from Miami. He's represented a ton of people. Listen, this guy went for 3 hours. I want to say it's 3 hours. You already know that criminal defense attorneys are amazing storytellers. And they have, if they 30 some odd years, he's been a lawyer doing criminal defense attorney, state and federal criminal defense. So you can imagine. I just sat there the whole time going, are you serious? Well, what happened? Oh my God. I mean, the whole one story after another. And then he left. He's like, I can go on for another 3 hours. Like, you got to come back. You have to come back. So I'm having a hard time getting him back because he said, well, we'll just let's do a Zoom. But you were in person last time. Let's get you to come back.
Yeah, Zooms are a motherfucker.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have to, you have to. But
and I do. But I mean, at this point, because I've got over 200,000 subscribers at this point, I was doing one in person a week. Not because that was my format, but because that was the most I could get people to come. Was I could maybe get one person a week to come, and I was doing three remote. Right, I use StreamYard, not Zoom, but 3 remote podcasts. But now right now we've got a backlog of in-person. So we're now basically almost at that format where we're going to start doing 2 in-person, 2 remotes. I mean, I'm hoping when I get an actual studio, I'll get to a point where I can do 3 or 4 in-person a week. That would be great. That would be ideal.
You want to try to do 3 or 4?
Yeah, I'd love to be. I mean, because by that point, let's say in a year from now, if I could, I want to get to a point where I can have like a full-time person just scheduling. So they're scheduling flights, they're scheduling people come in. I talk to them for 3 hours. We put up the video. They stay in a hotel room. They go home. I think that would be great because I think all of those obviously do way better. If you're going to get 20,000 views on a remote podcast, I'm going to get 100,000. I'm going to get 4 or 5 times as many views.
There's no personable. Sometimes you have to do it because of their location or schedule, but especially like a good one or just a unique person, like we were talking about. You need them in person for especially like a guy like you that's very good at reading body language, so what angle to touch, what to push. It's just so much better.
Yeah.
Because you want to bring the best out in whoever you have in to help them too.
Well, I was going to say the other thing is that, you can control the environment. How many times I've had somebody come on and it's like, you can see their bed in the background with a bunch of dirty clothes on it, or they've got, their laptops on their desk and it's pointing up at them. You can see the dirty fan behind them on the ceiling. And you're like,
or no, they got the fan with the light on.
Yeah.
So then the camera's catching the fan.
Yeah,
click the fucking light, and then
what
you got
to.
It's just like,
it's like, come
and
on.
And you've had this talk before we came on.
Oh yeah, and I've done that. I've done that too. When like, do you have a laptop? Do you have this? Okay, we need you to do this, and then the guy comes on and he's on his phone. Yeah, bro. Yeah, okay, I'm ready to go, bro. I'm ready. So what's up? Yeah. I'm like, are you holding your phone?
And you got to be like, can you please put it landscape if that's how you're going to do it?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like, come on, man. This isn't FaceTime, okay? You've seen my stuff, right? Yeah, I'm excited. So you understand that I'm trying to run as hard as you're making. People make it. And right now I have to schedule 7 podcasts a week to get 4. Because that's how many 3 people a week drop out.
Yeah.
Because they're derelicts. I'm dealing with derelicts. I'm dealing with bank robbers and drug dealers. And like, these guys are not, you text them like, hey, I'm sending you the link right now. And they're like, oh, bro, is that today?
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they
You accepted the calendar link.
Yeah.
Like
Oh my God, that's today. Oh well, it's.
I texted you twice yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
You got to realize who you're working with, I guess.
I know. But, they also have, like, the best story. It's funny, too. Sometimes I'll get guys like, it's like the guy's got a great story and he can't tell it. And then I'll get the guy that's outrun the police like 6 times, but he's a crackhead, but he tells a great story.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll take a crackhead who can tell his story over a guy who stole $100 million in a Ponzi scheme that can't tell it.
Because it's funny.
Because it's funny
and it's good.
They're funny. They're energetic. They, and especially if you've been in jail for 10 years telling your story,
you got it down.
You got it down.
Yeah.
Where the Ponzi scheme guy got 6 months and he can't tell anything. And he's apologizing the whole time and trying to tell you he's not a Ponzi scheme. It's like, stop it, bro.
It's over, bro. It's over. It's in the papers. You're done.
They got you.
You're done. Move on. Well, Matt, I'm really proud of you. Congratulations on Lex. I think you're going to be on Rogan next. And just keep doing what you're doing and don't stay away for so long. Keep in touch more, man. You used to be here. Fucking remember the beginning?
Yeah.
You come for the weekend. We do 4 in a row. Fucking crazy, man. Thank you. And if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be sitting here. So because of you, I'm doing this. So thank you for getting me into this and everything, really. You're 100%.
No problem.
And you've always stayed the same with me. So I got nothing but love for you, and thank you very much. And I'm happy to see that you're still with Jess. Well, you know what I mean? Everything's good.
Yeah, that's not going to change.
Yeah, that's
She's not
great,
going
man.
anywhere.
I'm very happy for you. I truly am. Truly am.
Well, I appreciate it.